So it is just a little after 7 PM on November 7th, 2018, and I'm calling the Board of Health meeting to order. We have 2 variance hearings scheduled this evening for septic replacements, and then we have a number of appointments for discussions and a long list of other interesting agenda items. So, let's see, so we know,
Could you,
so you're here for fun, are you here for a particular?
10 Spotted Road.
okay, 10 Spywood, number 1 under agent.
Okay, all right,
Could
so as
sign
soon
in
as
on
the
the
agent arrives, then we'll take first, what is it, 24?
Yeah.
And then we'll take Spywood. 24 North Main Street, okay.
As long as
And
it's
it-
not 7:30.
In the meantime, we will take care of some other items. So we received the mounding study update. I don't think we have too much
Were you
to.
going, there's nothing to add to
Oh.
the agenda, right?
Oh, yes, so, yeah,
Is there?
nothing, anybody have anything
No,
they'd
I
like to
didn't
add?
have anything.
Okay, yes, it's a
Track,
long
but no.
agenda, so
Yeah.
we didn't
Yeah.
receive anything less than 48 hours in advance of this meeting.
So I did send the edits
Mm-hmm.
to Mr. Horsley and told him to just go ahead and finalize the study so that he can provide it to us in PDF format, and then we can also post it.
So it's been
I did,
received?
as soon as, I mean, I CC'd you, Ellen, so I'm
Yep.
hoping that when he finalizes the report.
It came today?
Yes, it did come.
So it should be right in your, with your agenda tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, then, it's done.
So-
Check.
Okay.
So I can, I don't know if
and
you
you
want to
can-
vote on it to accept, and then I
Okay.
can, I'll post it.
Did you get a chance
What?
to see if he
What?
made the edits you requested? I did not.
They were very
Minor.
minor, so
Okay.
I think it should be fine. And I mean, we accepted his red line.
The only thing
so-
that's odd is he dated it tomorrow, and I stamped it received today, but
Oh,
that's fine, you know, there's not much I can do about that.
Okay.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All
it's-
right. So do we have a motion to accept the mounding study provided by
So
Mr.
moved.
Horsley?
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, so I'll have it posted.
let's see.
About flu clinic.
Yes, flu clinic update.
Okay, so I gave you a
And then-
written report. It went very well. I will say Sean Colleen was a huge help, because he had the trailer he brought the trailer to St. Teresa's, so that when Jean and I set up, we could just, everything was there.
Oh,
And then when it was over, he came, drove the trailer right up to the door, and we just loaded everything right in the trailer, and he took it away that night.
Oh, that's great.
wow,
So
that is
he,
great.
that was wonderful, that was a huge help. But it went very well. We vaccinated 134 people, which is up from the past couple of years.
And I noticed that you did proceed with my recommendation
Oh, yeah.
to tell the
Yeah.
school, and I saw that, which
Yeah.
I think was great.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that, Ellen.
Yeah, and towards the end, we did get quite a, but we always get,
Yeah.
everybody waits till the last
Stragglers.
minute. But I don't know if they were, I don't know if anybody came from that, but it,
I saw
Can't
it.
hurt.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Okay, sounds great. I'm looking for easy little things. I don't know that we have easy
How
little.
about the ledge disruption?
You think that's easy? Oh, okay.
I have
guess.
nothing new.
All right. That is wonderful. Okay, well, not wonderful, that there's no new information that we can use in the development of our regulations. And I had a discussion with somebody else on that recently. Oh, dear, and I don't remember who. All right, if it comes to me, I'll mention again later. But they had no knowledge of that, but could see that it was an issue and that it's a difficult one, and it's difficult whether it's a town of 4,500
To
or...
put something into place, a regulation, simply about notification while we work on a more detailed, thorough regulation?
That's the plan. I have not had time to revise what we had. I don't know if anyone else has made edits to what I had proposed in the past, but,
I thought it was-
so I think that
I
should be
liked
on
it the
our
way it
next.
was.
Oh, all right, that's good to
Um,
know. So,
I mean, that was.
I was going to
definitely
try
read
and
it, yeah.
incorporate some things from our previous discussion, but let's have that on our next agenda, which
What?
is that in December, right?
Yeah, what is this?
Final draft, or?
Review of regulatory updates, which we've kind of had as a placeholder, so just keep it as a placeholder.
Is item 4 related to that, Daryl? The request to selectmen for town council to review? Is that one of the things that you were contemplating? or-
It could be for that, it could also be for the review that Agent Halal is doing.
Okay.
Okay.
So was that number 4 of your agenda? Did you
Well, no,
just-
that was number 1, really.
Oh, okay.
No, but my question was.
Yeah, was
My question was
related to-
related
Was
to
then
4, but
related to
Daryl
4,
wasn't.
yeah.
So is that what you're discussing
Okay,
now?
sure, since Mark isn't here, okay. I think we might, given that we're talking about the other regulatory updates, and right now we have the cesspool, ledge disruption notification,
Irrigation wells?
irrigation wells, and we could also, although it might take us more time, so we could think about whether we want to try to get as much into one as possible, or just try to get something done sooner than later on the ones that were farther down the
Priority.
path. So the other one would have been VOCs.
That's gonna take, I think,
More
a bit
time,
of
yeah.
time, so why don't we
Okay,
push with the
proceed with
ones
those three.
that we have at the
Okay,
more
so
developed?
if at the next meeting we can get to text that we feel firm on, and that might benefit from town council review, then we could look at approving that and moving ahead with a public meeting, so.
So can you just briefly articulate the process? So if we have a final draft that the board approves,
And it
then
would
what?
show where in the regulations it would be in formatted
Right,
like the regulations.
right.
Yep.
Then does that go to
You-
town council for review and then to public meeting, or
We
what's-
haven't had town council in the
Yeah.
past, so
Oh,
that's,
okay.
the question is whether we would. You know, we had the issue, I think what brought up town council in particular was the issue about how to say one well per property, lot, parcel.
Oh, right. Getting their
multiple,
input.
multiple parcels owned by one property owner,
Mhm.
associated with one dwelling, you know, how we
Right.
word that. And maybe there are other things to have them review it for.
And then it's got to be in the newspaper twice, 2 consecutive weeks, with the second publication at least a week or at least 10 days before the meeting. And then, so then it gets put on the website. I make up a document.
You prepare a
It gets-
document.
I prepare, I don't make it up. It goes on the website, and there's handouts around if people want them.
And then we announce on the
And then you
agenda.
can
that
have,
it-
and then it's a public hearing
Mm-hmm.
on the regs.
Okay.
It's scheduled as a time.
So from the time we approve
It could
what we
be-
believe is a draft,
A month and a half.
let's say we can get town council to just do a quick review,
And it's-
finalize it, then get it into the papers twice,
Yeah,
and
And
then
then
put it on the
timing.
agenda for the
Yeah.
following
So
meeting.
it's about a month,
Okay.
a month and a half
Okay.
after you approve the final
Draft.
language.
Okay.
Right, so maybe February or March.
Right. But it's considered like a public comment draft for review and comment after we approve it.
Except once we've specified some language, either we need to approve it in the identical form or very nearly so. We can't make major changes during the hearing. Is that correct? To the language that we propose?
Isn't one of the, isn't the, is there any comment before we finalize our draft?
By whom?
The public?
Well, that's
Before
the
we
hearing.
finalize what we're going to propose for the
No.
town
No,
council?
we're making the
you-
public comment
you-
draft, so we're making the draft that
That they
they're
then
gonna review,
comment on.
and then they
I'm
comment.
not sure. I don't think the board has ever made major changes
Yeah.
to,
My
without
I mean, I might. I don't know.
another.
If we had, I
If it's
would,
a regulation, I think we can do it ourselves. If it's, I mean, we should obviously take comment, but I think it's something we have the authority to do.
I think my question would be,
I don't know
if
the
we hear
procedure.
something that influences us, that we do want to make what's considered a significant change, we might need to put it back out. Is that what I think
That's
Darrell was
That
my
would
getting
be a
at?
question
understanding
for
is
town
that-
council, too.
Because I know with DEP, when they put out draft regulations for public comment, it's a similar thing, and they have public hearings, and we provide verbal and written comments to DEP. They consider them, sometimes they incorporate them, sometimes they don't, but if they have a section of the regs that they're like, time out, we might go back to the drawing board on this based on, significant input and comments that they think are worthwhile, then they might pull that one piece and redraft it and put it back out. But it would need to be something substantive versus, like a
Right, a
language.
clarification
Right,
or
right.
something like that.
Okay, so I think it probably is a similar process. Okay.
And that's what my understanding is, which is why when we tried the VOCs before, there were so many comments.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
impossible
Time out.
to
Yeah.
do some changes on the fly, even if there were a few that we had agreed upon at that time. So, okay, so then, I think we might still want to make, given that wording issue on the well, and perhaps even to understand better what kinds of changes would be considered minor when we got to the public hearing, would be useful to have town council input. Minor in terms of being able to make a tweak and move ahead with approving something. So, do we have a motion to make a request to the Select Board Office for town council review of both our regulations and providing us with some guidance?
So moved.
Second.
Any other,
Are you saying
Comments?
all of our regulations, or are you specifically
just-
talking about this one?
the ones that we're proposing?
Oh, the ones we're proposing, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's see. Figure out what's a 5-minute item. And that doesn't need the,
Agent. Maybe we can just have an initial kind of
actually, how
printing.
about the FEMA discussion? Is
sure.
that,
I don't know what it is.
I don't either. I didn't see anything.
Paul?
No.
Did
The
you?
Public Safety
don't know
Committee
what it's about.
was wondering if we could report back to them about what sort of the status of what we as a town are doing, or, and I said I needed to talk to you guys, or to Ellen, because she's the one who knows the most about the requirements from the state and what we, so he just wanted to get a word back.
What is it? I don't know.
This is the safety committee?
This is for
FEMA Emergency Management.
Public
Act.
Safety Committee Chair and members are interested in what the Board of Health has been doing or is doing or in the past has done for emergency
Preparedness.
preparedness.
It seems like a very broad scope.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And
the question,
you have
that's why
big
they,
documents that someone could come in and look at in the office and,
They're not really for public viewing.
no, but if it's someone
Public
from the
Safety
Public
Committee,
Safety
yeah.
Committee.
maybe you could tell me.
That might be easier
Figure
than
out who gets
trying
on the
to
boat.
download all the information she has, is for someone to come in, and would
No,
you
I
be
think that
amenable
I
to
said
someone?
they asked me to just report back. If you
Yeah.
could just give me you
Oh.
could just tell me what you
But I think the point is this
Having-
is
I
actually
can
going
talk
to
to
be
you
pretty
about it after.
extensive.
That's, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not-
but
it's not like
documents
two
like
documents.
this, at least. It's
Yeah, that's
very complex.
I mean, that could take a long time.
Right, and we've had trainings in the past, not recently, but we've had trainings in the past. There's the MAHB
There's
sessions.
never been, I've been to the
there's-
MHB sessions, but because we hadn't really talked about emergency preparedness as a board since I've been on the board,
Yeah?
I said I would just check with you and see if there was anything in particular that you
I
have.
think emergency preparedness
used
would be
as a
like epidemic
approach.
disease
Yeah,
outbreak,
it's-
toxic
it's
waste
for
release.
public
like it's-
health.
No, no,
Right,
no,
yeah.
no, we all know what it is. We're not asking.
No, no,
what-
Lily,
but
but
FEMA
I'm
is
saying like it's,
focused
Yeah, I
FEMA's
don't do
flooding.
anything with FEMA.
Yeah, so that would be public safety, I would think, if
Yeah.
anyone was going to be addressing
Well,
that.
they think that we are public health and that we should give input because they are interested in the subject. So.
All right, so maybe
And I
here's
think
a-
there's absolutely a medical component of
Flood
emergency, if it's
emergency?
if it's a infectious disease.
No, but we have that covered, right? Isn't
So
that what
who are the people
I guess I don't know why
officially
what you guys are
involved with the
confused about.
emergency
DPH.
response plan in town, though? You're one of
The
the...
fire chief,
Okay,
the fire chief, the police chief. I am for public health.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
But-
think probably what they're interested in is we have a trailer in which is stored equipment and things that might be useful in the instance of that,
Only
I
for
think-
public health. You know, I mean, we have all the,
Absolutely. No, they're only
but it's
asking.
got it's not FEMA.
Okay. So-
I mean, that's what I'm very confused.
Yeah, the title, I
So
think, is
maybe- So
confusing.
maybe it's not, I think they're just interested in
with the emergency...
disaster prevention and what would we do
Okay.
in a circumstance
So-
of an emergency earthquake, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And so
We have
were
an
just
emergency
talking about it.
dispensing site plan, emergency dispensing plan, which is why we hold the flu clinic
Yeah,
at St. Teresa's,
Yeah.
because that's the drill. That's how it, if there was some
So emergency
epidemic
readiness
that-
plan
outbreak,
or something?
Yeah, it's
So
an
does-
emergency dispensing site,
So
which
does
is,
that exist in your office?
yeah,
So if they're
yeah,
interested,
so
they
that's
could
what they're
go-
interested in. So, no, they don't want to see it and review
No,
it. They just want me to give them
But the point
the.
is, it's
So it
really,
exists.
those
We
kind of
have an
plans are very
emergency-
complex.
Right,
They're very
yeah.
complex. There's something
It's-
about if you need to evacuate people to an area, where do you set that up? If you need to dispense medication, how do you do that? If you need to provide for people in other ways, then there's a section on how to do to that. It's not something that you could, in 5 minutes, certainly not.
Yeah.
Or even to try to relay that vast set of stuff and phone chains, and there's just so much to it that it's
Well,
hard to
that's fine.
summarize.
I mean, that's exactly what they're interested in.
Oh,
So
okay.
maybe I can talk to you about it.
or,
And
or
your
Michael
office and-
Goldstein could come to the office, which would be, rather than me giving it to you, you giving it to them,
Well, I mean, I'm on the Board of
Yeah.
Health. I should know this.
okay?
So
well-
I'm interested.
Well,
in
when he
talking
comes
you
to the
about it,
office, if
tell
you
me-
can come too.
Absolutely.
okay.
But I just said I'd report back to the committee.
Yeah.
It's not that,
Yeah.
it's not that big of a deal. They just are interested in what we're doing and,
But I think the scope of what you've described, the perception is it's very broad, and there's a sort of lack of specificity. So if you say, what is
Yeah,
everything in your
yeah.
purview that is
so
emergency
really,
related?
the answer is we have a very detailed document that goes in detail
With the
over a lot of
focus-
different
Yeah.
subjects, and
On-
there are these.
I think it's a
No.
focus on
So that's what
epidemic
he's interested
disease.
in,
Yep.
that's what I'll tell
And do we have
Okay.
emergency
And the other
plans that are
point
other
is,
than
it's not
epidemic
just the Board of
disease?
Health. It's,
like toxic
He's
waste.
only asking.
Well,
hazardous
that's
waste.
all,
Okay,
no.
but
Each
it's
department is
really-
report-
oh,
of course,
okay.
of
Oh, all
course,
right.
of
Oh,
course.
So I think-
The
so I
Public
think-
Safety Committee
So to
is
answer
made
the
up
que-
of,
to answer the question, it sounds like the Board of Health has materials related to epidemic disease outbreaks and
Yeah.
the handling thereof.
of course.
No, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that your question is, what do we have? It sounds like that's the
That's what
answer.
it is, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So, and if they're interested in knowing more, we can talk about it further.
can
But
come and
every
review the plan.
department is
Yeah.
reporting on their
piece of
specific
that?
piece. And so we have never discussed it as a board since I've been on the board, I thought I would just ask the board. And I'm happy to report back to the committee, which is what I'm going to be doing at the next meeting. So
Okay.
that's all. Thank you.
All right. So, okay, sorry to the folks waiting for the other issues. We have a scheduled hearing at 7:30, so do we have green cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I can open the hearing. This is regarding a septic replacement at 40 Great Rock Road. Are there any abutters to 40 Great Rock? No. Okay. So the engineer is going to come up and present the reason why there are variances being requested. Oops, it's not moving so well. And if anyone would like to come up and look on as he shows maps to us, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Dan McIntyre, representing the owners of 40 Great Rock Road. They are preparing their house for sale at some point, had a Title V inspection, and it did not pass. They have an existing cesspool with just an overflow line there. So we were retained to design a new septic system for them, which we did. So, to orientate you, this is 40 Great Rock Road. The cul-de-sac is just another house down, just about the road down here. Their well is right in the front yard, right next to their house. So we did a number of test pits back here, and as the road name would suggest, there's a lot of rock there. We had, here we had ledge of 36 inches, ledge of 36 inches, with a big ledge outcrop right by the house. But we were able to identify after a while a number of test pits right in here where the ledge dropped down and we had enough soil for a septic system. So we did design for a conventional septic system, septic tank, donut-type leach trenches. But we are asking for a couple of waivers from the Sherborn Board of Health regulations. We did comply completely with Title V, but we would like a couple of waivers from the Sherborn regulations. And one of those is the depth of groundwater less than 5 feet. We hit the redox features, the modeling at right around 4 feet below grade. So that's one of the variances. The other variance we were asking for is to reduce the 5-foot groundwater offset down to 4 feet, which would be Title V requirement. We were asking for that as well.
Okay. So this is the property boundary, I'm assuming,
these
so.
are the property boundaries,
Okay.
yep.
And this is the on-site well arc?
This is the on-site well arc.
Okay.
This is the arc to the abutting well over here.
Okay.
This well over here was way up in the front yard. Another well to the
Great
north
Rock
part.
Road is what we
How far was it from the on-site well? Sorry, I can't really.
25 feet.
Site wells up gradient.
It's up there. Both wells are up gradient. So we're looking at 125 foot offset.
Okay, and the perk rate must be
Per
above
grade was
2.
3 and 6.
And-
We had limited space to put it because of the ledge, and we were trying to hit that, kind of that sweet spot right there, so.
Yeah. And the front yard is out because of the on-site well.
And the butters on so well.
Okay. Okay, so that is the spot.
And I think.
It's
this
replacing a failed cesspool.
ledge- yeah, if you look at the neighbor's house, the ledge outcrop comes way out over here, it's just a lot of rock there.
But you're able to put in a conventional system.
Right.
So that's
Which is
a
pretty
asset.
amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as Matt noted, right, it's replacing a cesspool.
Right.
Which is fantastic.
All
and
upside.
a huge improvement in groundwater quality. So, okay. Has anyone come? No? Okay, would be in a butter. So we might streamline this a bit, and we'll just go through each.
So,
I'll make my general comments. There is not a lot of space on the property once you eliminate setbacks from sensitive receptors, other people's wells and their well, and suitability. Well, really, that takes care of it, and plus, this would be unsuitable up here. So you only have this area, so it's making the best with what's there, and we always like to see systems improve. This one's clearly an improvement, and if we did not find a way to get a system in place there, and if we don't have 5 feet to groundwater on the property, you just don't have 5 feet to groundwater, and if we did not approve this, it would mean that the house would be unusable, and that would be unfair taking. So,
Basically, 48 feet.
so that's kind of my summary of it. Anything else? Nope, okay. So, do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01?
So moved?
second.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
And do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.02?
So moved?
Second.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Very much.
so I'll close the hearing and mark the plans ready for
Yeah.
approval.
Dan may have mentioned it was a difficult site. They tested quite a few areas. They exhausted the area, actually, based on the above ground level wells abutting. He meets the well distances. And the reason I bring that up is that this is being requested as a upgrade and one additional bedroom. If it was closer to someone's well and they had a concern, I think the board would probably need to address that on size, 3 versus 4 bedrooms, but that is not the case here. The other thing, they hit refusals, so they're staying the 6 feet as required to refusal, and the 4 feet to groundwater. The groundwater was profiled between each hole, and that was done correctly. So with everything said, it would be just, I would recommend approval conditional to the deed recording, the deed restriction for the garbage grinder, and pre-construction obviously is part of that final overview. And Dan and I talked about a few things, but I just wanted to make note especially that there is an addition to a bedroom for this request, from 3 to 4.
Right, and really, even though there are these two variances that we approved are linked.
Yes.
So it's essentially one issue, and that's depth to groundwater.
So independent of system size.
So, okay. So do we have a motion to approve the plans subject to receipt of a deed recording for the garbage grinder?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All these pieces are pre-construction notes.
I think that was correct.
There we go.
Thank you, Dan. So now, Mark, you get to jump right in. We have a few people who are here for issues. The first one is 24 North Main Street.
24 North Main Street.
You didn't do 70 Russet Hill, did you?
No,
That's-
that'll be at
that's coming up.
7:50. We have to wait
We have
until
an
the
appointment.
time
Yeah.
for it, so.
Oh, there's 24.
So 24 was added to the agenda, I believe.
No.
No, it's
So-
number 1 under other business.
Oh, okay.
It's carried over from the last
ZBA
meeting.
That's the one we discussed with the board at the last meeting under the ZBA petition. They want to, basically, the building is set up to house a beauty salon, spa, massage therapy, and,
Oh, okay. Jump into that, just let me
oh,
know.
yeah, we'll wake you up. No, excuse me. But, so with that said, they originally designed this property for a home, for 4 bedrooms, and they then decided to switch it over to a spa/massage therapy. So right now, if it hasn't changed since my inspections, because they sold a little bit of food items, I used to go to inspect it, they had massage therapy rooms upstairs and the beauty salon downstairs with the tight tank for the beauty salon products, if the board, Darrell, you might remember that, for the colors and the permanents and so forth. They would like to now combine those two different ideas together with an upstairs residential facility, I believe 3 bedrooms, and a downstairs spa/beauty salon. They're moving everything from upstairs down into the lower level. It would require, it's a change in use per Title V, that's going to require an engineered plan to show that the existing capacity that's there can meet compliance, and if the septic system meets a Title V passing inspection, and that would be brought back to the board, and the board would decide if, and I would review it for you as well, and decide if that capacity meets what they're requesting. So
Okay.
I don't know if I summarized it enough. I see the applicant here, so
Okay, and for the change of use, do they also need to go to the DEP for approval of the spa portion of that? Or since it's currently a spa, they already have that?
it creates a unique situation where I would probably, once I get the details from the engineer, call the state and just make sure this is very unique. It was one, then the other, and now the combination of the
Right, and
two.
that's where it's a little, right, I
Yeah,
can see where that's a
so-
gray area.
But you do see that now and then, but the change in use does have to be reviewed for gallonage and, as I said, even for the protection of the groundwater as it relates to the tight tank for the spa, making sure that's still in existence with a contract. Those are important items for groundwater protection as well.
Right, okay. So, I don't know if you have questions for Mark about what he said, but basically, there needs to be an engineer, so it's one thing for us to look at the plan, but somebody needs to be able to say that the system could support 3 bedrooms plus the business operations. So, and that does require someone to get those details and
So
formally present.
Correct. So we scaled it down to 2 bedrooms so that we have 440-gallon system. It's a mixed-use system, so we pump out 1,000 gallons every 3 months. So the idea is to have an employee who works there to live upstairs with his family. So it's not going to be like a rental unit. It's just the spa is very big. It's almost 2,500 square feet. And currently we barely use 30% of space. So all the space on the second floor is completely lost. I mean, it's not used. We can't use it. So the idea of having an employee live upstairs with his family, something that we would like to consider. What we have is that we have a white water company that comes to the on-site every month and takes measurements of water that our well pumps. So we have a history for the last 2 years of how much water every month we used. So that gives us an understanding that how much a spa salon uses the water, and so how much capacity is left.
But I think it's independent, I mean, doesn't Title V define this as like a hair salon, this
Yes,
is the
this
gallon?
would be in,
Used 100 gallons, but the state says you have 3 chairs, it's 300 gallons.
Pretty
Using
much,
100 doesn't.
that's correct.
Something like that.
If they have it on their chart, and then there's no need to go to the 200% of a water meter.
Yeah.
I mean, they could present it, but the state has their
Right,
code on that.
that would be, the state would have to decide if they were going to accept your historical
Usage.
water usage versus the number that they publish. So that's out of our hands, but so really it becomes simpler. We're not
Just looking it up right now.
determining whether it's okay for someone to live there or not. The question is, can the septic system support the flows
number of bedrooms
from
is not-
that and the bedrooms? And an engineer could help you determine that and has to pull together the information, because we can't really make a decision with you telling us what the size of the system is. Somebody needs to evaluate it. As Mark mentioned, you need a Title V inspection on the system to make sure that it's functioning properly.
And would it be going into a tight tank that's then, like, I guess that's the part I don't understand. Are you saying the residential portion will go into a tight tank would be pumped?
No,
Talking
actually,
about
it's a
chemicals.
spa that goes on a tight tank because.
So only the salon products and then the rest
Yeah.
is a conventional system? Okay.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And they do have beauty salons, and Matt, you're right on it with the 100. I just looked it up to, I'm
I
saying
also
you,
looked it
you,
up out full
you
disclosure.
already have it down pat, thank you.
But you said you're gonna only make it 2 bedrooms?
Two bedroom,
Because the
right.
current plan shows
Right.
3 bedrooms?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have updated, but it's middle space would be
Just
as a living room. It will be just 2 bedroom.
So the other thing an engineer could help you do is, let's say, add up the flows from bedrooms, whether you have a garbage grinder or not will influence the flow, the volume that you need to plan for, and then look at the spa issues and determine whether your current system is adequate, yes or no, and then if not, what are your options from there? Do you have the
I spoke with
the land to
engineer
change it, so.
before coming here, Paul Salvieri. He is the gentleman who developed this system in 2004. And he said that, yes, it's a unique situation, but one of the critical elements would be to look at how much water usage the spa consistently uses.
But I think our point is, looking at the Title V regulations, that's not our interpretation, and so I think the punchline here is that Paul would need to kind of come under his license to say, I'm an engineer, I'm here in my professional capacity, I vouch for the data that I'm providing as part of my kind of licensure and credentialing and the rest of it. And then we'd have to adjudicate that. And I think the relevant questions would be, if the spa products are going to a tight tank that's pumped, does that need to be accounted to in the septic outflow is one of the questions. So is it all of the effluent from the salon going into the tight tank? If it is the Title V regulation pertinent for the question of the septic system that's not going to the tight tank? I think that's a question for the state. I think it's for Paul vouching for, this is the rationale that he's forming the basis of in his professional capacity to sort of opine on the bedrooms bring this much, this brings this much. For our regulations, for example, any single-family dwelling is considered a 3-bedroom home. And so I think we're saying the residential space here is substantial, and so it's kind of what does the use of that look like over time? And we don't, is this a single-family home? Is it a mixed-use business? Do the baseline regulations apply given the footprint is similar to, so there are a lot of complicated issues to figure out that I think having the engineer to vouch for part of it would be helpful, and then there's probably guidance from the state we need, because this is an unusual situation.
Right,
if
and
I
the
may-
state would have to accept the alternative
use.
flow volume
Yeah.
calculation, so not us.
And to the situation as it relates to the tight tank, they originally, when they first set up the spa / hair salon, they had a separate sink at a separate chair just for colors and permanence, so that would all be excluded from the other chairs.
Right.
I don't know if you have like the 4 chairs or more than
Do,
that.
yeah.
So one of those chairs, if it's specifically for coloring and permanence, then that would exclude itself with the tight tank.
Right, because it goes right to a
Exactly.
different
Goes-
place.
yeah.
It's not going
Yeah.
to the septic.
So you'd sort of have to think, what's the chair count for non-tight tank disposal? The change of views from the state in terms of, is it true flow, observed historical flow versus 100 gallons per chair?
Yep.
And then
And
the
the-
guidance about,
They could do that.
yeah.
Well, didn't you
So
say it
for
was
the wash.
200%? So it's double what you
So if they
say
wanted to
you
look at the meter readings, I don't know how we're going to exclude that sink, because that's based on water coming in, which is used both at the 3 chairs
So
for
it's
washing.
conservative.
Right.
It's
It will
conservative,
be
so that's
conservative,
okay.
but the state probably won't allow us to do that, because that's only if it's not listed on their chart. So that would need a waiver from the state, and I don't know if they would grant it, but they can present it, and to show it will be conservative if they wish, but that is really a state law that says you can't change that chart.
Okay, so there's a
Unless there's
default
nothing, yeah.
assumption for per chair, and
Right.
So in terms of concrete next steps, it sounds like one would be having Paul formally involved to kind of weigh in as the engineer. That would then come to the board, we would consider it, and I think figure out what are the questions that need to go to the state, probably via Paul. What are the questions for Board of Health to figure out in terms of,
Except I wonder if going to the state, depending
First.
on what he comes up with in terms of what's the size of the system now and what are the anticipated regulated flows, not actual, but maybe regulated, see how that compares, then compare to your measurements. And would it make sense for them to go to the state first? If that calculation on flows from the salon activity have bearing on their
I would say that would be
System
appropriate.
sizing.
The state will always communicate with us if someone's calling on behalf of our town, so the word would get back to us too, so we would be aware of what's being discussed. So Claire Golden is
Right, it just
our-
seems that if they come to us, we won't have that answer to
That's
that
correct.
piece of the puzzle, so I think you need to do that first.
And he would go to the state, or we would, or Mark would go to the
I
state.
think he
It
would.
doesn't matter. I
Oh.
think the engineer should go to the state, and then Claire would communicate with us as well.
Perfect.
And then if they say there's a possibility, it would have to be a waiver, no matter what the case is, from Title V. If they say it's a definitive that it's not allowed, so be it. If they do want to handle it a little differently, they usually would call on us to let us know what they discussed with the engineer.
And then it sounds like there'd be a variance for us in terms of the room count question, in terms of the rooms above the
Possibly.
first floor.
Maybe.
We may have
Right.
to, yeah,
And so
because,
that'd be-
because everything is above the second floor.
Right, and so just figuring out,
Well,
how do we think about it, because we don't have a
But
lot
it's
of
an
mixed-use
apartment.
It is
business
the
and housing in Sherborn, and so.
We do have a little, and I was going to ask you,
How's that been
I
handled?
believe on the other side of Rose's from the spa, I believe there's a dwelling and a business in that building as well.
I
Yes,
believe
28
we
North
have
Main
one,
Street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least one,
So-
if not two.
Okay, and I don't know if it's
I mean,
at least 3 bedrooms or not, and
look at that,
I
too.
just want to be consistent
how
with
if we
what we've done.
treated
That
things
would
that
be a
are
good.
more
Precedent.
of an apartment than a
Home.
single-family home.
Usually when we're looking at second floors, we have another two-family downtown and more than one. They're usually considered per floor when they design the septic system at the corner where the lights are.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, on the right, yeah.
One was designed as two separate living facilities because it was always that way.
No, and I know we've had some homes that, and we're going to have to come back to this in a minute, but that the bedrooms are downstairs and the main living area is really where you walk
Upside
in, but
down
because of the slope. So
Yeah.
I know we've done that, but in terms of the 3-bedroom requirement,
3-bedroom minimum.
Yeah,
we,
that'll be interesting to see how that works because the state requires for new setups, new change in use, minimum 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, so so in terms of your roadmap, I think we've kind of defined the next steps, and what we see as the key questions, though other things could come up depending on what happens with Paul. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right.
okay. So 2 main questions for them, the 3 bedrooms and the, and
mixed
how
use.
they're going to determine flow.
Thank you.
All right.
7:50.
Okay. All right, so it's 7:50, and we have a variance hearing for a septic replacement at 70 Russet Hill Road, and are there any abutters to, okay, abutters? So the engineer is going to present.
I think he's the
Oh.
owner, not the abutter.
Are you owner or butter?
Oh, you are the abutter.
Good.
Okay,
Oh, okay, all right.
all right, so the engineer is going to present, and you can stand and look on, and anyone else who'd like to as well. Did we get all the green cards?
Yes, yeah.
Perfect. And, okay, so the engineer will present, the board and the agent may ask some questions, and then when we're done, then any questions you have, you can ask as well. Oh, okay.
The soil
Got a preview. All right.
shows.
Dan McIntyre representing the owners of 70 Russet Hill Road. They are in the process of selling their home, and they failed the Title V inspection. This is a home that was built around 1972, 73. Their existing septic tank is off to the side yard right around here, and they have 2 leach pits.
They had some ledge, so they had to design around this ledge. And so
This is very similar to Great Rock Road, and there's a lot of ledge in this area. We uncovered these leach pits, they're actually sitting on ledge. We've got a number of test pits throughout here. In Found Shell is just about everywhere, except in this strip right through here. We've got test pit through here, that shows we've got 4 feet of soil. So this is why we concentrated in this area right here. The on-site well is down here, it's down gradient, from this one here. And the abutters well, this is where they live over here. The well is up in the front yard, we identified that. and we've got 125-foot offset to that.
Okay.
Because of the shallow bedrock, we are asking for a number of waivers from the Sherborn regulations, as well as one waiver from a local upgrade, which is Title 5.
Okay. So basically, it's 4 feet of soil sitting right on ledge.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So
In
what-
which case, isn't the state, maybe more, I'll ask you, so isn't the state then 6 feet when it's right on top of ledge?
Sure,
or-
it's 6 feet.
We're 6 feet when it's right, okay. I guess it's, other towns do that too, when it's on
Yeah.
ledge. Add more space, okay.
So what we're proposing is a two-compartment septic tank, a pump tank next to that, because we had to mound this up. And then we're gonna pump up to kind of a long, narrow leaching system using 4 trenches. We're proposing to use an innovative alternative technology, which is the Elgin system, which is essentially a sand filter. And we're proposing that because we are asking for a reduction in the groundwater offset. So we want technology to try to improve the treatment before discharge. And really, that is,
Okay,
is it.
so again, we've got setbacks constraining you to a pretty narrow area unless you went further back here, but you said there's just
We
more
did- we did
ledge
go
and
back there
and less,
we didn't even record it because we hit ledge.
yeah.
So how deep was the ledge where you're putting it? It's 4 feet or
It varies.
4 to 6 feet?
It varies from 4 feet up on this edge down to 6.5 feet down to.
Mm-hmm. And then the abutting property where you are is similar or even higher in elevation?
It's a little
Yep.
bit higher.
Okay, so it's upgrading it.
Their well is upgraded, their septic
Right.
is behind their house.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, leaching pits are essentially cesspools, and if they're sitting in groundwater, they're not doing really
Yeah.
any of the treatment that you would hope for, so this will be way better.
My only
here.
question is, I think the abutters are fine because of the slope, the topography, so that's good, I'd like to see that. Is there any potential concern because of the impermeability of the ledge and the slope back to the house of some kind of drainage back towards the house issue, or no? You really, is a pump just
It's-
gonna,
It's hard to say, we'd have to kind of profile the ledge all through here to figure out where it's gonna go. But for the on-site well, we did maintain 150-foot offset.
I'm not worried about the well, I'm wondering about the house. Like, is there?
I don't think that, I think.
Like, even if the
in
pump
general,
failed or
it's-
something,
in
it would be
general,
okay?
It's gonna
Go to the
toward
back?
this direction here.
Okay.
And then it drops off sharply, as you can see from the contours here.
Where's their present septic field?
Right here, there's 2
Yeah.
inch bits out the.
There's not
woods.
really a field, just a pit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it,
It's downhill.
yeah, I guess if, you know, if it hasn't been a problem so far.
Right, but if you said 4 to 6.5, then
Sloping back, okay.
maybe, although there's also that kind of
Right,
difference that
I just
way.
was curious.
Yeah.
You don't want a water feature.
And going towards where your index finger is, I know over here, it's worse and worse. Over by your hand, what happens if you slide it that way?
I didn't go on his property to start digging.
Where's the property line?
It's
Right there.
It's right here.
Okay, on her side, or their side of the property line.
Well,
This way?
Is what I'm referring to.
And we know that's sitting on.
It's shallow
Okay,
ledge.
so that interferes with the opportunity to move.
I think so, yeah.
It sounds like it's the best spot in an unfortunate,
Right, and then
topography
the
and
other
ledge.
place would be sliding this way, but here ledge is denoted again, so
Yeah.
it's,
And the ledge
We're
is
literally between a rock and a hard
is
place.
variable.
So to speak.
If you look through a cross section here, you can see kind of the ledge varies underneath the system, so. At times, we may have ponding of that flowing down here as it reaches through, and then it's gonna eventually soak into the fishes of the rock. And
I was wondering why that's a better site than the current site, where you just put it where the old one is.
Well, the systems nowadays are much, much bigger than the old ones. The old ones are just, they're 4-foot pits, you know, from the wood. So,
They've done that room.
and we did find the ledge out there, so we really didn't have the soils.
I'm not quite sure how they got those in there.
Well, they're not working now either, so.
Right, because it
They're not
failed Title
functioning.
V.
No, and they're not really treatment, they're more just a means of getting something underground and
Yeah.
out of sight. So,
So hopefully the innovative new technology will do a better job.
What you're providing is better than a hole in the ground.
much better,
Certainly.
so. Do you have any other questions for him?
That's all I had.
Yeah, this is,
His wife was very helpful, I wrote.
oh, okay. Yeah, she is.
Not ever on the phone.
Sounds good. Let's
She
get
is very
voting.
She
helpful.
keeps him on track. Okay, so,
Ariana also.
What?
An RN.
Oh, I forgot about that.
all right, so I'll just, go through these, and if there's anything you need to add, jump right in. But do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01?
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.02? This one is related to the first one, both dealing with the 5 feet separation.
So moved.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to grant a variance to 10.2, which is the setback distance from the property line, so that's to your property line?
Yes.
And do you have any questions or comments on the setback to your property?
Convince me it's all right.
Okay. All right.
It exceeds the Title V requirement. This is just-
State requirement's 10 feet.
Okay, so I can't remember, was there a motion and seconded?
Not yet.
Okay.
I was-
Do we have a motion for variance
moved.
10.2?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And do we have a motion to grant a variance to 15.0B, which also has to do with the 5 feet of natural soil?
So moved.
And as you highlight here, there is 5 feet at least a few
Majority of it,
spots. Yep. So, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Your wife did mention that you were gonna put a provision in that they couldn't have a disposal.
Yep.
Yeah, that's,
Yep.
we're coming, we're getting
Okay,
there,
enough of
yeah.
that, okay.
One more variance, and then that's the next thing after. So, let's see. And where that comes in, so the agent has already reviewed the plans. They don't get to us unless they pass by various technical specifications. And one is that the system size is related to whether you have a garbage disposal or not. Even though, in general, it's very bad for septic systems to have a
Yeah.
garbage disposal, so nobody
We
should
have-
have one, but
We took ours
Yeah.
out.
yeah, if you're going to have one, you have to
Yeah.
make the system bigger. So he's already seen that,
And so that comes in
it's
at the
sized for
end. We'll
that.
say, subject to the garbage grinder deed restriction. We say, oh, good, and then we vote.
Yeah.
So, okay, but last one we have is a Title V local upgrade waiver, so this is to Title V, that we have the authority to grant waivers for. Do we have a motion to grant a variance to 15.405,
So moved.
1H, LH? I'm never
Yep,
sure.
1 inch.
Looks like a 1 to me, but.
Yeah, it does, but,
So moved.
Second.
okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so I'll close that part of the hearing, and are the plans ready for approval, Mark?
Yes, they are, but conditional too. The recording
garbage
for
guy.
Or deed recording for the garbage grinder.
And the IA technology as well?
The IA technology as well, yes.
Okay.
It's
So-
built into that sentence, but it's both, yes.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the plans subject to receipt of deed recordings for the IA and the garbage grinder?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Have a good night, guys.
Okay.
Have a good
All
night.
right.
Okay, so Darrell, you need to sign
Innovative.
upgrade approval.
Okay, so Mark, in a moment,
That's it.
Oops.
You already dated it for me, huh?
Do you think 10 Spywood is something we can squeeze in 5 minutes?
Yeah, I want to try to, well,
I don't like the
let's mark it.
acronym.
Mark-
So is 10 Spywood doable in?
10 Spywood is ready to show the board if the board so wishes.
5 minutes-ish?
Well, it's up to the board on that.
We can go
I-
up to 6.
Okay, let's try. They're big plans, so.
Okay, so do you want to come up for this discussion?
See the existing house. It's important, the unique addition, but I just want to show the board. So, family library, this is the basement, they have a playroom, unfinished there, the west. And I don't want to go too fast either. This is the second floor, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a garage, unheated three-season porch, correct, unheated. And then one family room, one dining room, kitchen, and this existing family slash living room, thank you. And this is where you're gonna see an addition in a minute.
Okay.
And then on
This
the
is
sec-
on ground level.
This is the first floor.
Okay.
And then on the second floor, we have 4 bedrooms. 1 master bedroom, 2, 3, and 4. Now, what they're proposing to do is to build, let's get to that.
So we have 9 rooms? Am I counting that so
9
far?
rooms. And his proposal is,
These are demolition, it
Yeah.
says.
we're going to demo it. These are not, if they're not, I got another set of plans in the record on part of this. Let's see. I think these are them here. If not, I have them.
Yeah, these are right.
Well, we'll go to the second floor. It's the easiest way to start. Pretty much a walk-in closet's being added to the master bedroom. It's being reconfigured. Here's that guest bedroom. So they have a bigger master bedroom, but that's not an issue. It's still one,
It's still 4 bedrooms.
Correct.
Okay.
and that's easy.
Second floor, okay.
Not that they're not all easy. It's a 4-bedroom house. We have the disposal construction permit from a while back, and I'll get the date for you. But here's that living room I said paid, but more or less this is where they're gonna be at. They still have the family room, kitchen gets remodeled, correct? No, it just stays the same.
Stays the same.
So this is all staying the same, and so here's your 1, 2, 3, where are we counting, 5, I think
4.
here.
Now we had 4.
4 in the
first-
playroom
yeah.
downstairs, and you're not doing anything in the basement, that's
No.
correct. And here's where the living room is being
Expanded.
moved over a little bit to the back side of the fireplace, and then a greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's why I'm bringing it to you. It's really expansion on an expansion, expansion on expansion, but it is shown as a greenhouse. But I thought it'd be worthy to show the board, and I'll let you know the date of the septic system in 1 minute.
And so it's
Another
a
greenhouse.
4-bedroom system right now?
Yeah, it's a 4-bedroom septic from 19, they had old plans, but everything was here. Disposal construction permit. We're showing 4 bedrooms in 1973.
Wow.
And that's what they showed here, and I don't believe, yeah, it was inspected once, the septic
And
system.
Is it a volume for,
2004, so it was when they inspected it. So there's really a determination of the room. If the room's considered in part of this room all the way over, then the room count would be fine for a full bed.
So is it going from 9 to 10, and then
Question I
needing,
asked, Yeah,
Yeah.
do you consider this an additional room over on this side of the, is this fireplace gonna stay the same and walled in on this side?
Yes, the fireplace stays exactly the same, and there are no doors here.
so it's just an opening?
These are just passage, it's just opening.
But how do you get to the new space? Yeah, the
The
greenhouse.
greenhouse, this is a glass door also, and this will be a tile floor.
What I was going to suggest, it's up to the board, is that If anything, we have them do a Title V inspection of the present septic system, make sure it's functioning. Since the last time it was done was 14 years ago. And then from there, it's up to the board if you so wish to allow this without a deed recording, but if you do want a deed recording, then, you could request one. But that might be for the playroom. If you consider this a room, then the playroom could be, it's a suggestion, the playroom in the basement could be deed recorded.
I would be more inclined to look at that because this just looks like a separent room.
Right, it's a
Like a lot of
module,
other houses
right.
that we look at, there are spaces, just like there's an opening here.
Right.
So,
And the playroom would be pretty consistent with like the building flow chart and other
The
things.
basement's not heated, the playroom's not heated, it's not used. The whole basement is,
It's not technically finished, per se.
It's not finished.
no.
are there any tiles on the floor? Or is it
No.
concrete
It's
floor?
it's all concrete.
Oh,
Oh, see, I thought it was a
Yeah,
finished
so
playroom.
that's-
so why do we have to call it a playroom?
Yeah, your architect described it as a playroom, that's what happened.
It's
so-
like, all the kids' old toys are down there.
Oh.
So if we
It's like
if
storage.
we recharacterize that as an
Are
unheated,
there
unfinished
ceiling
storage room.
tiles?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
there
so the
are.
ceiling is covered, but the
The
floor
ceiling
is
is
concrete.
There, yeah.
And it's not climate controlled.
But there's not heat.
There's not heat.
Yeah. So I think that's an unfinished storage room.
Yeah. So let's not, if we
Count
don't
it.
count that,
Right, so,
I would say if that's the case, which I didn't know, I
if
thought that
that's
was a
the case,
finished
then we
playroom.
would note in the minutes and in the file that
Yeah, then it
if
works.
you were to do any finishing of any rooms in the basement, then you'd have to come before the board.
And how would you
Talk about
want,
a deed restriction or an upgrade to the system, but I do think the idea of checking the
septic system?
septic system.
Because
is
that's a very, let's say, large addition, so you would want to make sure you don't have to repair your septic system prior to doing that. And a Title V inspection would let you know the status of it.
So it sounds like our recommendations are room count wise with an unfinished storage room in the basement. We're good for room count. Our general guidance and advice would be get a Title V inspection to make sure you don't get a surprise later that will be problematic.
it met the 4-bedroom.
Yes, yeah. They can have up to 9 rooms, so this would be the 9th room, based on the plans. I thought the playroom was finished, so that was my,
No, that's good.
Good.
Well, it's like a playroom, we just
Yeah.
often
Yeah.
assume that.
if you ever
Because
do
the other ones,
finish
I
it.
think, said unfinished or something.
I was going to say, if they ever do decide on finishing it, they kind of already have a roadmap of what they need to do.
Right. Do we need to have anything else to just clarify the plan so that if a question comes up 10 years from now, that this wasn't a finished
Yeah,
playroom at
actually,
that time?
Do we not remember where that playroom was indicated here?
it's
Just
one
to see
in
if
that
maybe
area.
the word unfinished should go in front of it.
It
somewhere.
says unfinished basement somewhere, I saw it.
Yeah, some of the rooms said it, but,
We're going to do some work in there, right?
And so I think just something that reflects the fact that this is an kind of non-climate controlled space and really a storage room.
yeah, I think something
Like
like
unfinished,
Okay.
yeah.
finished playroom.
Just for
or
clarity for-
unfinished
Clarify,
Floor and
yeah.
playroom, because,
Otherwise,
yeah.
if a future board looks at it and saw the plan, they'd say, well, gosh, that doesn't make sense. How did they count that? And that's the piece that we're looking at, knowing it's not reflected.
Something, and this says concrete floor here, so,
Yeah.
just those kinds of notations would help.
Do we need to vote on anything? What's it?
I think
'Cause there's
the
no
minutes
variance.
will be put into the file
Okay.
as part of this discussion, and I think a passing Title V and an architect, whoever your architect was, updating that plan to indicate unfinished basement room would be the suggestion.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And then where does the Title V inspection information be shared?
Well, you probably have had it pumped out since that first one in 2004. Let me see. if
I
you-
guess
you
my
can-
question is, are we making Title V a requirement or a recommendation?
It's up to the board. It's,
It seems like we've sort of treated it as a recommendation, so I'd say this is unsolicited advice to you, so we'd encourage you to do it, but should you opt to do it or not do it, isn't contingent for the board's response to your plans.
I would suggest.
And and that way also, would they send the record of the inspection to the file?
It
So,
automatically,
you know-
if it is done, it automatically comes to us.
Okay, so it's on file,
But-
so again, if questions come
But
up
if,
later.
if you're not making it a requirement, are you then instructing Mark to just automatically
How do we
sign
make
off
it a
on
requirement?
this?
Like
Or
right now, we
should
don't have a
he?
very, like,
Right,
we're
we
not
don't-
doing a deed restriction, we're saying this actually complies with the room count. So
Right.
it feels hard for me to make it a requirement if we're not asking you to sort of bypass any of the rules.
How
Well, it
about,
is-
right, I think that's the.
It is frequently a requirement for a major addition when you go through the flow chart. But it's up to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this,
Regardless of if
Yeah.
it's changing
Yeah.
the room count.
yeah,
Right.
this is it. If it's under 50%,
Yeah,
it's still recommended to do it, but I
It's
will say that
required.
the applicant has been pumping the system out on a regular basis for the last 5 years, 4 times in 5 years, and the indication from the septic tank condition is good. So that's,
I was gonna say, we have it.
it is,
I remember those
yeah,
inspections.
using, they usually can open up the distribution box and tell you how the field's going. I would suggest, maybe it's a suggestion only, that, you evaluate your system for, you'd hate to do
How
all
about
this
if
to find out
it's-
I mean, if it's being increased more than 50%, it's a requirement. If it's being increased less than 50%,
It
it's
sounds
not.
like it's
It
less than
looks
50%.
I haven't
So
calculated
if
that.
we can just confirm that, less than 50% recommendation, more than
Yeah.
50% would be a requirement, but if it's less than 50%,
There you go.
we're good.
I'd say what is a requirement is updated
Yeah.
plans that reflect what we talked about, that room not being finished.
Okay.
Otherwise, right, our decision
Would be-
seems
Probably
silly
not calling it a playroom.
by anyone referring to the records, so.
Unfinished room for
Okay,
storage
so
of
Mark, are
toys.
these all your,
Yeah, that's the building
You're set?
department's
Okay.
files, so I can get those up.
okay.
In terms of determining confirming it's less than 50%, is that something that we would derive to just say, here's the new space? Like, is that, Mark, for confirming that this is less than 50%, is that something you can do?
I didn't do the measurements, but I.
Eyeballing,
Right, yeah,
it looks like it is.
It's definitely.
boss.
Maybe
Well, the green-
30.
Well, this is the case too, just that room, the greenhouse, if you count that room, then you could,
Right.
but I didn't count the
No,
greenhouse.
I wouldn't count the
But I
greenhouse.
want to make sure the board is comfortable with that. The greenhouse is a sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very unlikely to be turned into something else.
Do the greenhouses have heat?
It has a, it's gonna have a heat.
Yeah.
What about 55 degrees?
But it's hard to imagine that somebody would turn a room that's made entirely out of glass into a bedroom.
That would be an awkward bedroom, yeah.
Like, if your bed, that's your bedroom, you have to go in there.
You see the stars every night.
Yeah.
Certainly in the winter, it would be an awkward.
Unless it's cloudy.
All right, you guys have a good night now.
Thanks. Okay, and,
I think we're slightly
right,
past 8:10.
apologies to,
Stephen.
our 8:10 appointment, discussion of a building application at 5 Speen. Oh, is that you?
Either's
You're
choice, whatever makes you
presenting.
happy.
Aren't you presenting? If you don't want to, I can help you through
But
it.
if you want to present and sit, you can still sit,
I
right?
can help you. But, no, that's okay, I can help you, Steve. Let me get your plans out. You don't have plans or anything with you? Okay, then you're gonna need some assistance.
Yeah, because I tried to look through the package we got and I was lost.
So, Steve DeCosta, he submitted a proposal for a preliminary building application. The house he built, you might know it, it's at the corner of Coolidge and the one that goes to Natick.
Speen.
Speen, yeah, this is 5 Speen Street. So, it was built a couple of years ago, and it was built with the maximum amount of rooms you have, it's a 3-bedroom. So the first floor has the eating, the kitchen, the dining, and the study. And this is all one. And then,
And so for that floor, we're counting 4, the kind of,
yeah.
Wait,
Metro
one,
kitchen
they have
area.
The 3 bedrooms.
3,
What they
4.
want to do is they want to add, and there's a room, let's see.
Is it
Or
4
just
bedrooms
as-
or 3
There's a room here,
bedrooms?
well,
3.
Yeah, and I can get the building plans, I don't have them with me, but it shows a whole different plan.
but I think this is the,
Is
this
this
is,
the
no, I think this is 2 floors. We don't include the basement on this.
Right, this is
And
the
and
first
then there's a
floor,
hand
yeah.
sketch of the basement
So you have
that's
the
separate.
study, the dining room, the kitchen, and
So I think it's 4 on this floor, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
and
oh,
then
here,
3 upstairs.
I'm reading
Yeah.
upside down.
No, you're thinking garage.
No, I was
Yeah.
definitely.
That is above the.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fine. And there's a house there, so it's basically maxed out with the 7 rooms. If it goes to 8 rooms, it would be.
And do you understand when he says it, it's maxed
Right.
out, what's maxing it
I
out?
do now. He
Yeah,
explained that to
perfect.
me. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Based on Title V.
Right, and so it's just
Title
dividing
V
by
says
2.
when you go from 7 to 8 rooms, it's that's the state code, it's considered a 4-bedroom.
So basically, when they built it, they
Yeah.
chose a certain septic system that could only serve a certain number of bedrooms. And then what they do is they maxed it out, so it couldn't get bigger without having to replace the septic system when they built it.
I think that the key context for you is just to know a piece of this is your pattern of use, but a piece of this is each time we kind of opine on something on behalf of the Board of Health, it's thinking about the lifetime of this home. So you may say, here's
No,
my
no,
use case.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And really,
So here's what the proposal.
I'm just trying to add a bathroom. I made
Yeah.
one really stupid decision when I built it.
You're like, I'm sure they can share back. Yeah.
That
I
now
also-
are a nightmare.
Ask about, so we
So
have
this is the
7 rooms,
Right now.
but there's 8
7.
in the basement. There's a
No, that
finished
doesn't
This-
exist.
this is
family
No,
room.
no, no,
Basement-
that's
basement-
proposed.
None of that
Okay.
That's what we're
Right
talking
now,
about.
basement is
I thought it was
unfinished and
only a
it's admired.
bathroom.
Here's the portion,
Didn't
here's
realize.
the garage
Great.
that I
Right.
did with the living room above. And then they want to put an office, an unfinished basement here, and a family room here with a full bathroom off to the side here.
Right,
What
and
what I really am trying to do, just to summarize, I appreciate it, is put up another bathroom in the house.
Yeah.
That's where I can put it. And now, if I could just put a bathroom directly as I only have one entrance into the basement, except from the backyard.
Yeah.
Right, so from in the house, I only have that one. So I don't care, I just did it as 2 rooms, just because it's kind of it would be a sort of
Yeah.
a awkward room, the way the lolly columns are. So I just sort of said, all right, well, I'll just put a wall there, but I don't care if that's
Right.
there or not.
And for us, for bathrooms don't count towards, so if one just added a bathroom, let's say I added 5 bathrooms to a house.
And then
But I
plan
can't
is that
really
it
add a
shows you going
bathroom
into
Yeah.
the bathroom.
Without, I mean, I'm not gonna make my kid walk to an unfinished basement to get into a
Yeah.
finished
That
bathroom.
makes sense.
And you also need it to be heated, because
No, I-
otherwise your pipes would, for the bathroom,
Yeah.
would freeze and all of that.
No, I mean, that's, I don't.
You don't think so?
No, not in the basement. I mean, I don't, it's,
You're-
I'm not
you're
gonna
like
add
it's
any
sort of
heat or
Jump from
cooling.
7
Right,
to
but you
9
sort of like,
rooms,
it's
that's
heated
an-
enough by
that's
the
a
ambient
full-
temperature of the house.
Okay.
So it might not be the one.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got like a
I've been in
Or
bathrooms
should
like
be
that, it's not really
Exactly.
fun, so if you have a teenage daughter, she's
And-
probably not gonna
Well,
like
that's-
that.
Right. And what I'll do is put a radiant floor in,
Oh,
right, so
okay.
electric heat on the floor,
Okay.
So that would be heated. Okay.
For the bathroom.
just the
But-
bath.
but it's a
I have no, I'm
bathroom,
not gonna,
separate.
because the ductwork also runs along that, this is the center line, where the lolly columns are, and the ductwork also runs along both sides of those. So, and I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna do a hard ceiling, assuming that it's okay to finish it. So that I'm not gonna have, there's no closets. It's just, I have to fit, it cost me the same to put the bathroom in, so I might as well just finish the exterior
Yeah.
walls. That's what I was doing. And then I'm gonna leave it unfinished on both ends, because they still need basement.
So, what's the rule with, if you have a room
Below
with a
grade.
bathroom below grade?
Well, so I think what we've said is, my recollection is below grade room can be not included in the room count for the deed restriction, but I don't know if that is, what have we done for below grade with attached bathroom?
Yeah, that's what
Go
I'm,
to a half bath, just a
But I
toilet
think
and a
half
sink.
bath, I suspect, is not the rate limiting step with 2 teenagers, I suspect.
Yeah, I need a shower.
You're like, I need the other
So
half.
So
then,
that's-
then that becomes a
Like 3
master,
times a
that
day.
becomes a master
Yeah.
bedroom.
right, so that's the problem, is that big, when you have a full bath and a
Yeah.
room next to it, that counts as a bedroom, which
And it
pushes
goes
you
Looks like
over
a
the
master
septic.
suite or a
Yeah.
in-law
Not because that's
suite
your intent,
or
but
a
just-
Right.
au pair suite.
Yeah, okay, all right, so you tell me, how do I do that?
Well, so I guess the issue, we have 2 issues, right? One is a room count issue, right? And one
Room
is a
count would go to
attached bathroom.
9
Well, so-
rooms.
Right, so we're
I mean,
starting,
technically, Well, that would be stupid. I was gonna say, I don't have to have a door, I could keep the bathroom door.
No, it's-
In the unfinished.
It's having a room with a full
So I think
bath.
Well, I'm
there's,
saying, they
yeah.
wouldn't have to technically be connected, but that defeats the purpose.
Well, I think we got two, so I think that your kind of two issues are right now you have a
Room count.
7-room house with a 3-room system, so if you add 1 room,
You're over.
You
that we
go to
count as a
4.
room, you hit to 8. Now, there's an exception to that for basements below grade, which I think your basement looks like it,
Yeah.
is it below grade or is it at grade
Well,
at the
it's
back?
below grade in the front,
Front.
and it's
Yeah.
walkout in the back.
So let's say that we call that below grade, then you could, if you had a finished space with no bathroom, then you could do it with the deed restriction where you say, this is
It
a
can't be
below
a
grade
bedroom.
room.
But
Right.
not with the bathroom,
And
that's
so
the
that,
problem.
so I think that's the rub. And so if you then say, my only goal is a bathroom, once there's, like, again, I totally get the rationality of why you want to do what you want to do. I think what's tricky for me is thinking about what makes it so the next owner of that home doesn't say, this is great. This is where the au pair is going to come down here.
Yeah.
We're going to be upstairs, and how do you navigate that? And that's what makes it tricky for us to think about.
Right, especially with the walkout, because then it qualifies even by state housing code for a bedroom, because it's got the egress, it has window light.
I know, but
Yeah, so
I'm
it's-
not gonna finish where the walkout
Right.
is, but.
So I guess the question I think the question you're really asking is, what does it look like to get to yes? Because if I'm trying to add a bathroom, what is, and so if we think about it from a room count standpoint, sometimes we have things where we say, yeah. So I think this is I think the struggle is really that sometimes we have ways that we can say, if you squish these 2 rooms together and have archways in one big room, that can get you there, but your problem isn't really a room count problem, it's a bathroom attached to finished space problem. So the only way I can think of it, although I'm not saying that you have to do this, is, do you consolidate an upstairs bedroom to a super bedroom, and then, like, if these, so let's say bedroom, again, not trying to tell you what to
No,
do,
I
but if you
know what
squish,
you mean. I'm trying to think out.
if you do like, if you squish these together to one super suite, you now have taken out a bedroom. If you make the downstairs space finished, you are offsetting a bedroom that you
Oh, I see.
consolidated.
He has a
So
girl and a boy teenager.
on totally separate
Living.
floors of the house, so you
No,
can
no,
say.
no, no.
Theoretically, it could work.
So the way that could work from a family dynamic is if you
Yeah, you
said
send the
one of
boy to
them
the
has a
basement.
bedroom up here, and then one of them
You
moves
send
to the
You
basement.
send the boy to the basement,
Yeah.
teenage boys smell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you
I
just
have no
move them
issue
down,
with that.
yeah. And so I think that's, for me, kind of what yes looks like, because it solves all the issues.
So, now,
So
if
you'd
you
have
have
to
a
get-
copy of that second floor.
Yeah, so
So
basically
if
you
you
have
like-
to get rid of that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, no, you'd have to change this to one bedroom.
Actually get rid of it?
Yeah, you
Or do I
do.
just put another door?
No,
Because
you,
that's a whole suite.
no. You have to get rid
Yeah,
of,
so
this
then
can't be
You're
too,
turning a $10,000 bathroom into a $50,000
Yeah.
fiasco.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
No, I understand.
yeah. I mean,
And
that-
so
That's the
again,
only,
So I think that's one scenario. Do people have other ideas? Because I just think it's
That's
just that
about
finished
it.
space with a bathroom is, what if it's a bath, what if
The
it's a
only
shower
other
with no
thing I thought
toilet?
about was
Like, is there,
That's the
another door
shower.
into this bathroom, so, maybe they'd take some reconfiguring so that
the
not just
existing.
the master bedroom, but
Yeah,
other occupants could use
My
that
architect
bathroom.
really thought I needed a lot of space as a single dad.
yeah.
A ridiculous amount of room. That should have been attached to that, and I should have had my own
Yeah,
right there. But now that's a massive undertaking.
right, because everything's already built and structured.
What about the,
You know what I could do?
what about
which
the
I-
study office getting, is that, if
But
you,
you're still stuck, because even if you knock out the study off, like, until you turn a bedroom into not a bedroom, knocking out the study office only helps you with room count, it doesn't help you with room count.
oh, because it's on, above
ask
this,
a
it's on the second
hypothetical.
floor, yeah.
If I literally did walk in my entryway into the basement and made that the bathroom. And
Yeah,
then
I
just
think
put a
that,
door on
because
the
that
other
bathroom
side.
doesn't count, if it's not connected.
You mean with no other finished space?
Exactly.
Or even if there's a finished foyer, like if there's
Yeah.
like a finished hallway to it, the hallway
Right,
doesn't
as
count
long
as
as
a
it's
room,
not a
bathroom doesn't
room.
count as a
Well,
room.
there already is, like, I
Yeah.
come in from the garage into a mudroom,
Right.
and then there's stairs, and then there's a door into the unfinished.
So you could have a
basement.
mudroom slash bathroom.
But
Well,
like, I
no,
think
I opened them
if
in
you had
the-
a
in-
transition
into the
before the bathroom, that wouldn't count as a room, because it's essentially a hallway transition.
Right.
And so I think that makes it easier, because
The two ways, one way in, one way out, another way out, two different.
Yeah, it would have to be a door into the bathroom and then a door out of the bathroom into the unfinished basement, because otherwise I have no other access.
Yeah.
Mm,
I think
It
that
starts
would-
to get very tricky that you have to keep that
Unfinished.
unfinished, otherwise
think-
you're automatically at
But
four
if you
bedrooms
did
after that
keep it
goes to bed.
unfinished, that would work for us, because it's
Yeah.
not because the bathroom in itself doesn't
Doesn't
break
count
your
as a
room
room.
count.
Right.
And if it's not attached to
Okay.
finished space, it doesn't turn it into a bedroom.
All right, definitely not ideal, but
No,
I'm
yeah.
sure I can.
But I think
figure
it
out
gives you
how
a
that
couple
could work.
scenarios to figure out do I like the castor oil better? Do I like the prune juice better? You know, which is sort of the least of the less than totally appealing.
Although, I mean, this
Right.
probably isn't a load-supporting wall, though, either.
That I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
For what?
The two
Are you still
bedrooms that you have?
destroying
Yeah.
that house?
Yeah, okay, never mind.
So I think we've kind of given some of the scenarios, and then if there are other questions that come up as you sort of work with your architect to say, well, what does this look like? Then I
am
think,
my architect.
yeah. Then
Okay, so then that's the only, I can't think of any other feasible way
Right.
that's gonna work, so I'm just gonna have to go from
So,
bathroom, out of bathroom.
Into basement,
unfinished.
right.
so
Or
unless,
if
I
you
mean,
could
what about the
make a-
I think I
expansion?
got
Yeah.
room.
Could he expand his
If you could make a
septic?
hallway that
They were pretty
wrapped
tight there.
around, so
Took
you
up the
could
whole
get
front
into the
yard.
bathroom.
So when you
but
say
also
that-
have
But
your
that is a
access.
potent,
I mean,
another possibility.
From our
Well,
standpoint-
this
You might need
entrance,
waivers.
I mean, this one's kind of rough, so it's hard to know for sure.
I think there's enough room. So I would just have to, I'd finish, like to there, make that whole thing a bathroom,
Yeah.
and then just have
Okay.
another door there and just keep everything
Yeah.
else unfinished.
Or, would that work hallway here? bathroom
But I would say
here,
like,
or
but I
it's
think
too-
for us,
Yeah,
what I would
so
say is,
maybe there'd be
Yeah.
another door.
you could be your own architect. We sure as heck shouldn't be your architect. But what I would say is, I think broadly conceptually speaking, having a transition of some type hallway.
You know
Yeah.
why I didn't want to put the bathroom over there? I just remembered now, because the
It's not
sewer
lined up with
is
the
over
ones.
here.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I can pump that far.
But if you had unfinished,
Well, they make pumps, by the way, that
Yeah.
can pump that far. We have to make sure they reduce them, actually.
but what I would say broadly is,
Wow.
if you had a hallway here. So
Yeah.
from my standpoint, if this is a clear visual transition that's a narrow passageway, our risk isn't that it's going to turn into a 12-foot long,
Bedroom.
5-foot wide bedroom, right? So from my standpoint, this whole thing could be a transition to the bathroom back here. This is unfinished.
water.
This is a long
Oh,
hallway.
I see what you mean.
That also
Septic
is not
system.
breaking your room count. So if you wanted to say, here's my unfinished basement,
Okay.
you're coming
I
down
could go-
here.
I put a wall there, build make this
Last
whole thing a
house in
hallway,
Sherborn?
and then just.
Right, and then have the bathroom at the end.
How
That,
far
like
is
for
it-
us,
how
it's
far is
just
it needed?
consistently
I don't know
following
if
our
they'd let 'em
rules to
tie
be able
in.
to say,
I see.
Be
and
something
from
you'd have
our
to check
standpoint,
into.
there's
There's a
no
couple
risk
of
that this turns
add-on,
into a bedroom
tie
and
in,
anything other than the most punitive
into
approach
those,
to your
like,
son.
add-on to the
So
system.
you're
Or tie
good
into
because it's,
Natick.
yeah, tempting at times. But so I think that also solves the problem, because it's not a room, it's not breaking it, you're not tying it to finished space, and it's a hallway.
Right, and then the other option, which I don't know how feasible it would be, is you could maybe ask an engineer to assess if there's any way you could augment your existing system to
Right.
accommate
I
an
think it's gonna
additional
be tough on
bedroom,
that
the
lot,
capacity.
because you've got the
Yeah, so
wet right behind it.
That took me a year just to get that designed because of the wetlands and.
Yeah,
He is surrounded
like
by
you were
water.
just,
I know you had variances, and is there no way you can tie into Natick? They just,
Boy, I've asked a couple of times, it would have really been convenient.
yeah, I mean, you're
It's like
literally
8
the
feet
last
away.
house
Yeah.
Oh, I
in Sherborn.
need
yeah, you're
water.
like, yeah.
You have water
I
and you
needed
don't
water.
have
That's
sewer.
right.
That seems crazy.
He's
I said
like,
I'd pay for it.
yeah.
It's, I can see
The
it.
hookup.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Would they know?
All right, so
I
it
just
sounds
don't
like
get it.
we've outlined this, and in the interest of time, anything
Okay,
else for folks to add?
So I'll redraw it and get it back to you and
I'll share it with the board and see what we got.
try again.
Good.
All right, thank you
Good luck,
very much.
absolutely,
Appreciate your time.
absolutely.
Good luck.
All right, we're at 8:30.
It's actually the first thing I thought of, I don't think we'll go for it. Okay,
We're on time.
have an appointment. I request to allow installation of replacement system
Something very unique.
prior to submission of required deed recording. So, do you want to speak?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sue McPherson. I'm the realtor for the McCabe's. You all approved the replacement septic system back in September, and we needed a deed restriction for the garbage grinder. We have been trying since September to get this done. The issue is the property was put in registered land instead of recorded land.
yeah.
So I don't know how familiar you are
I am.
with this, so, everything's different.
Yeah, land court.
Recorded land, it's very easy to go down, that's really the majority of the things you guys see is recorded land. You can take the deed restriction right down, then you file it, good to go. Registered land, not so simple. You have to go to land court
Yeah.
for it. So it is a very lengthy process, we've been through this since September. We have, the sellers have hired an attorney at great expense to try to get this done. They're continuing to work on this. It's just, now we're running against the clock with respect to the winter months. So we are asking if there's any way that you guys will release the plan to Scott Septic so they can start the process, still realizing you have ultimate control over the process, meaning the certificate of compliance can't be issued until the deed restriction is issued. But we are, they're cooperating in every single step of the way here. They've been doing this since September, and they're doing their time with the land.
Can I say, just this morning, an attorney called?
Yes, I talked to him, yes.
And he just asked if the beginning, where it says declaration made this day of whatever, whereas by deed dated, he asked, could that be changed since it's not a deed? If it could be changed to by title dated, and then they would file the garbage grinder deed recording. And
Title
I-
recording?
I
So it
felt-
won't be referenced in a deed
A
per se, because
deed.
it's
It
land
would
court,
be-
it'll be
Right.
attached to the title
Yeah.
instead?
Because the issue is
Mm-hmm.
land court deals with title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And-
Yeah, no, I mean,
but
I've put
I
restrictions on registered land, and
said that would be fine.
Yeah.
And that way we would get it, and it could go right through, and he said,
as,
okay.
I mean, the whole point of it is just
Yeah.
so that it runs with the land.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if for land court, that's via the
Yeah.
title, I don't think in terms of function, that really impacts things
sounds like-
negatively, so
So
It
it
sounds like there are two
sounded
questions.
like he
One
was
is-
going to do it.
if we can
So-
make that modification
Yeah.
as part A.
So let's answer it two ways, though, because if you
Yeah.
can't make the modification or something else happens that's unexpected, the question of can we tie it to the certificate of compliance? Because right now, we don't know, and then if we push it back 2 more weeks.
No, he
He said if you can do
would-
that,
if
that's
he could
totally
do
fine.
it, he would do it, yeah. And I told him, yeah, that's fine,
Does that
because
allow
as
it to
long
be
as.
resolved in
Yeah.
the timeframe you
Yeah,
need it to
'cause
be
you-
resolved?
They
Yeah,
can do
no,
that
I
in
mean,
no
I
time.
know enough about this to be semi-dangerous, even though I'm not an attorney. I've definitely dealt with putting deed recordings
Yeah.
on registered versus
It's
recorded land,
not-
and I
doesn't
think
take long.
functionally, this would satisfy
Yeah.
our concerns and intent, because it's gonna
Yeah.
run with the land. So if there's a transaction, are they doing this prior to a transaction, or?
We're trying to get the house sold. The issue is,
Yep.
as long as they can, as long as the examiner accepts this at land court, then as you know, from land court, then they have to take it to the Middlesex Registry of Deeds.
Right.
So it's two-step
Right.
process with land court. But there's no guarantee that this is going to be a timely process. Again, we've been going through this since September.
So it sounds like
It
from-
could take 3 weeks, it could take 2 months, but we don't want to waste any more time because Scott is ready to go.
So, but can he get it on the title?
He's hoping.
Okay.
He's got to get it to the examiner.
So I guess the question for you is, if we do the title thing, is the problem solved from your standpoint, or does the problem remain outstanding?
Well, the problem remains outstanding because it's not approved
Perfect.
yet.
So then I think we say, the title seems like we're collectively comfortable with that, which Ellen is communicating on our behalf. But the question of, are we comfortable doing it with the certificate of compliance being our
The
checkpoint,
date.
rather than the filing being the gatekeeper? Because I think your point is, we can change that, that's great. That still doesn't tell me I have a 1 week versus a 2-month problem. And if I have a 2-month problem, I'm still stuck.
And this is something the board has done in the past, right? Like you guys used obviously filing the deed restriction, you would give the plans to the installers.
And the reason it changed from
was a
that old
problem.
method is
Do it.
because
It's
it
a
was a
problem.
problem. So, and that's the part that,
This is such a, you know, a 1 in a million shot, and the sellers are doing everything they can possibly do.
So I think for us, it's a question of,
work with you
I have
and,
one other question. So what I've seen attorneys do occasionally is get it changed from registered to recorded land. Is that
Yeah,
something?
No, because this is a trust, there was a death situation, there's a lot at play here. So it's not as simple as that. They've tried a number of different things, but there's a lot at play.
so
I
it
guess what's
sounds like this proposal that you received this morning is from the lawyer who's representing the current owners. And
Yeah,
did that
he
person
didn't
have
say.
any sense of,
No, once I
timing for
said,
this?
once I said, no, that would be fine because it gives us what we need, he said, okay, thank you, and hung up. That's all he wanted.
right?
I
So,
spoke to the attorney director and I said, do you have a sense? And he said, it's land court. And we both laughed because anybody who
Oh,
knows
well
land
then,
court.
I don't know if
Yeah.
it was the same
So he
attorney,
didn't,
because he was
he
happy.
didn't make it, he
No.
didn't get
well, he's
into
happy he
details.
accomplished this
Yeah.
piece, but it doesn't answer that question.
Exactly.
And so I guess for us, it's a question of 1 in a million, when we can demonstrate that it's 1 in a million.
No, it's not 1 in a million. That's
It's
not-
fine,
that's
but if
the
it's
part-
every
problem.
single time, then it gets tricky because you're establishing this precedent for something that's previously been an issue.
right, it would only be 1 in a million if we say, because it's, you know, a death, trust, blah, blah, you know.
Right, but so I guess.
Wasn't a situation anticipated early enough because at the start of this process, deed recording was clear it was going to be needed, but nobody put the pieces together. So it's, to me, it's tricky. I'd feel better if I knew, like, what is the timing from the person who spoke to you? It sounded like they didn't have any further questions.
No further
Says to me,
questions.
were they comfortable with the concept that this was going to be able to move along or not, versus whoever you spoke to? I don't know
Yeah.
if that's the same person.
But I guess my question is, like, I think deciding the attorney being comfortable versus you being comfortable are separate questions. And really, it's a question for us of, is there a piece of specificity that applies to this case that makes us comfortable doing it versus no? If it's no, then there's sort of nothing else to say. If it's yes, then it's a question of articulating what are the specifics in this case that we think warrant that, whether it's that the land is held in trust, you know, what are the features of this
Okay,
is.
so I'll back up a little. My issue of whether the person is comfortable was more an
Yeah.
educated comfort, that they knew
Right, that it'd be
that
okay.
it was going to
Okay,
proceed in a
that
certain
makes
amount
sense.
of time. I didn't mean just, oh, yeah,
That's
sure,
what I
they
thought
thought it
it
was
was.
okay.
What is preventing this, us from saying, why don't we delay the vote for 2 weeks and maybe you can accomplish some of the stuff that's making.
We don't have another meeting in November.
Right, yeah. And it's also like, once the
Various
ground freezes
conflicts.
and other, like, I get the timeliness question.
So, Mark, in terms of gates, though,
Is there
is
another
a
point?
certificate of compliance suitable? For a new home, I could believe that it would be, because
Yeah.
it fits in with all sorts of other things about electrical blah, blah.
I
But
think
in this
getting
case-
confirmation from an attorney that it will be documented would be appropriate in this case,
You mean prior to?
prior to issuing the plans.
So the attorney's saying, these are the steps that will
Put it
happen.
in writing as an attorney of law, that makes a difference, I
Okay, the
think.
steps, and then how about if this person indicated to you that they were going to complete it immediately, that they would provide some evidence that it
Documentation.
had been
Oh, and
submitted
I
and
told
was
him
on
that.
its
Oh,
way in
yeah.
the process?
Oh, yeah, I told him
So
that.
do we need it to be submitted to land court? Like, is it proof of submission to land court of the title restriction and,
Then it goes to the examiner and then
It
it,
has to go to the
Right.
examiner and then they
Right.
have to review
Right.
it. And
right?
right, but we can make
But
it
I think-
contingent on the
but so
first
if we could say
step.
that it's
Yeah.
contingent on the first step and it's contingent on the certificate of compliance, that shouldn't slow you down and should be addressable by factors in the control of council that would then let us release a plan to Scott, feeling like we've done some due diligence. I think the fact that it's land court is a specific piece here, that this isn't a broad kind of definition for all like, there's specifics to this case that are relevant to the choice.
It doesn't set a precedent, I
Yeah.
don't believe. It does have its own
And-
circumstances.
But, just makes me think that as an FAQ sheet, Ellen, maybe something that prior to people considering transactions, they
Right.
should first understand if their land is recorded or registered,
Right.
so that the appropriate time
Well, or we can
allotments
just
can
have
be
two
made.
versions of
I
it.
don't know that.
No,
That's
I'm saying like,
something-
but we have a process
Have a
about
form
that.
on our application.
Yeah,
say if
yeah,
your
just
land
saying,
is-
you know, it's almost like a checklist to
Like-
homeowners. I'm saying like as a sort of education piece to people out there, like, hey, when you're starting to think about selling your property and having to deal with
Right.
Make up a-
upgrading
Having
or
the
replacing your
opportunity
septic.
to upgrade your septic system.
Yeah, exactly.
The issue is, I'll be quite honest with you, a lot of people, you know, call us after the fact, like, they'll want to sell their house, but then they'll say, oh, yeah, I have to get the Title V. It's like, oh my God, we should have done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then the issue is too big.
Yeah.
Right.
So it sounds like there's a way for us to get to yes here, that is the submission of the title restriction as kind of the release point for Scott Septic to start, and then the confirmation of
And
that
then-
being cleared for
yeah.
the certificate of compliance.
Does that,
And also, I know the request is for Scott Mayo to start, but there is one other prerequisite. Rob Scott, I apologize, Rob Scott to start, but there is a requirement that the engineer and the installer do a pre-construction conference
Okay.
first,
And the.
plus whatever else is going to be
But,
required.
yeah.
You're
But
looking at
this must
him.
be provided
Wow, you're so
first.
popular tonight.
Dan's the one.
And then, before the certificate of compliance, we would need to get the final recorded
Title
document.
Yeah, oh,
Yep.
absolutely. Documentation
Yes.
of, I don't know if they even call it recording, but I guess.
Yeah, with
Registering
the, at the
yeah.
registry deeds, with the proof of recording on it.
Correct.
The marginal reference.
And they know that, like, the sellers are very good, I'm, you know, working with them all
Yeah.
the time, I will make sure this is done. You know, they're trying to do their hardest.
To do the right thing.
ensure that this have been followed. They spent thousands and thousands of dollars on certain.
Hopefully they'll
So you
make
just need
them.
something from the attorney to state that they have filed it.
I think we
Or
need
what do we need?
documentation.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah,
should be a CC
something-
on whatever they're
Documentation
providing.
that-
You know, we should be a CC or, right?
I think, I don't care what
or
it
if
is,
they
I just.
send
Some
it
kind of
registered
documentation.
mail
Yeah.
that shows that they mailed it in and what they
It has
mailed
to be
in.
With the examiner too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever paperwork is generated from that, and a copy of
But-
what is submitted.
But I guess essentially what we're looking for is affirmative demonstration that the attorneys
That it's
initiated the
been
process.
provided.
That they've sort of submitted the form that we've said they can change.
So I mean, I would think that the examiner or someone there could either stamp something or just,
Yeah, right.
I mean,
You
couldn't the attorney also just, like, I mean, I guess, like, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, because it just feels like the more we're asking a legal bureaucracy to do something that's different than is typical for it, the harder it is to be able to. Yeah,
all we're
you think-
asking for is documentation. Let
That
the
it happen.
attorney decide
Okay.
what the best way to provide that documentation is.
Okay, but it sounds like in terms of guidance to the homeowner, it's, we need documentation. We are cheerfully flexible about having what that looks like.
Yeah.
It's not intended to create a barrier, but just to be able to say, we've done our due diligence to make sure this process is initiated. We hear the concerns, we want them to be able to address their septic issues in a timely fashion. So we just need to be able to say, you've actually started it, because that's the part that we feel there's some control over, and then the plans would be released. And then the certificate of compliance would be contingent on seeing the final kind of process document.
And then before they start, Dan and,
Is there anything we need to do to vote on that?
Shall we vote to authorize Mark to release, or for you to release the
Yeah.
plan?
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have a motion to authorize Ellen to release the plan following receipt of some proof of the recording having been submitted to, which board is it? Land court?
Title examiner,
Title?
or land court, yeah.
Recording
Yeah.
restriction,
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Something along those lines?
So moved.
Second?
Ellen's still writing.
Yeah,
She's like, also moved
yeah.
you.
I'm writing second.
Oh, okay.
I'm
All
ready.
those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you
Okay.
very much.
I'm
I know
sorry.
it's
Good luck.
big ask, so we
Yeah,
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And it can be emailed to you, Ellen?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Have a good night.
Well, you can let the lawyer know that the timing of their call to Ellen today was perfect.
Yeah.
I know. That's what I was Thank you, thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Dan, do you have anything else on the books with us? What do you?
He's here for 26 Bullard.
Oh, I started to look at
26
that.
Bullard,
That
oh
was where
my.
the Jamersons lived, right? I was there when they lived there, at Robin's high school graduation party. Quite a
What's it,
campus.
26 Bullard?
It is serious. Have you been
It's
there?
a beautiful campus.
It's a building application. I think you have a bunch of minutes
Yeah.
that go with this.
So, come on up, Dan. Do you want a picture of the house and what they're planning to do? Do you have all that? I mean, this is the pictures I have. He gave us pictures.
They're in
so-
Colorado now, right?
Yeah, that's the house they're going to they wish to go into the attic, so feel free to.
I ran into her a year after she moved.
Do you want these, Dan, or do you have these?
Yeah.
Okay, just, they're in the building file, so I just need them back.
So I don't know.
So this is a system we designed for the Jamisons probably a couple of years ago now. Before it was constructed, the house changed hands, the new property owner had some different ideas. There's actually three buildings on the property. There's the main house, there's this carriage house here, and then they have the barn where they have horse trainer living there. So we designed the system for 10 bedrooms total. After a lot of discussion with the board, we ended up with 6 bedrooms in the main house, 3 bedrooms in the carriage house, 1 bedroom in the horse barn for the trainer. At the time, this carriage house had the attic space, which caused a lot of discussion because any room
It's got a new septic.
Right.
So the first floor is 3 rooms, second floor is 3 rooms, and up here, it was going to be unfinished, but potentially could be 2 additional rooms.
3 bedroom.
So this could have potentially been a 5-bedroom house.
If those had been finished.
if those had been finished. So after much discussion, we left that unfinished, called this a 3-bedroom house.
Right, 6 rooms, right.
6 rooms, right? Now they would like to finish the attic space. They'd like to finish it into 1 room. It's going to be a master bedroom up there. So this turns into a 7-room house.
Both an added room.
But 4 bedrooms.
Yeah.
And
That
this
seems
is
like a
all,
problem.
so this is an addition to use of the main house as a residence. So this is
And
a
the horse barn.
completely distinct residence this would be used for.
It is. The owner's daughters live there, and her husband, and then the owner.
Yeah. So it gets tricky because it seems like the board specifically opined on it and said, this can't do that.
Well,
Oh,
with-
it did.
yeah. So why don't you
And
tell
so
us your
it-
plan?
So tell me how that doesn't apply anymore. Because I feel like you said this before, but I want to check and see if you really meant it.
Are you going to
It's
demo
tough
the
to be-
barn? Is that the punchline?
Yeah. Or like, yeah.
Darn it, that would have been so
They're gonna
easy.
The main house, we came up with 6 bedrooms based on room count.
Yeah.
There's only 5 bedrooms in there.
When we say 5 bedrooms, so 5 rooms that either have a bathroom attached or above the 2nd floor.
Dan, you may want to, they wanted to see the
Can we
plan.
see
The attic. They show the attic in a picture.
So that's attic
The
now.
attic now.
And then
wow.
they have the building proposed underneath that plan, that picture.
But I think the question of like what
I
they
don't,
want to
I
do in
don't,
the
I think
attic is-
that's straightforward. Let's go to the main house.
I think
maybe.
that's straightforward and not.
Not good.
permissible.
Yeah, but let's go
But
to
what
the
if-
main house
yeah.
and show us that
But
too.
what if you took, so is it all, it's all one system? The 6, the 3, and the 1?
Yeah, everything's on one.
And so can they take out the bedroom in the horse barn?
That's what I just said.
Well,
But
No,
that
they
means
have a
the horse
horse
trainer
trainer.
has to live
They
in the
have a
main
horse
house.
But I'd
trainer
say
who
life
lives
is
there.
full of
Yeah.
choices, and if you say,
Right, it's-
I'd like to add a bedroom.
It's like a
and I would-
Rubik's Cube.
Or,
Why not just?
or could they make those 3 bedrooms in this
To
house
two.
into 2 on
Yeah,
that
could you
second
make,
level?
could you do,
Just make,
change it,
just get a new septic system.
change,
The second floor be turned into 2 bedrooms.
Right.
But if you turn the, so if you turn the, so your point is if you recharacterize the main house as a 5-bedroom house instead of a 6-bedroom house, can you transpose that bedroom of capacity to the attic?
yeah, no, that's definitely what,
Well,
he-
Right.
that's definitely
I'd
what
like
he's
to just hear what he
asking.
has to say, because ignoring rooms as bedrooms or room count, and I seem to recall that we already had deed recordings for 2 rooms in the basement of that house, is that correct? Of the main house?
No, we did. We actually included those in there. The main house, when they did the addition, they put in 2 additional rooms underneath the garage for a theater and exercise room, I believe it was. And technically, they could be considered bedrooms under the room count method, but they could never be bedrooms. They didn't have egress. But for the Board of Health discussion, they were good 2 bedrooms. And that's how we got to the 6-bedroom count in the main house instead of the 5 active bedrooms.
Because of the 2 rooms
There are
under the
13
garage.
rooms in that house, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the single septic system maximum is for,
The system was approved for 10 bedrooms.
10.
It's actually designed for 11 because it's a proprietary system, and that's just the way it all worked out. But it was approved for 10 bedrooms.
Oh, so what about this, those 2 basement rooms under the garage shows the addition of a microwave, dishwasher,
But
refrigerator,
I think the
sink?
issue there was just saying that's not a kitchen, because if it's a kitchen, that's like a separate living unit. But
Right.
you did count those 2 rooms as bedrooms.
Yeah, we had to, based on the regulation.
Okay, so that, they were already counted.
Right. They were counted, but
Okay.
that didn't count
That's
as
not
a
a
kitchen, or
kitchen.
that would be an apartment, not.
Right.
I think that we should just,
So what we're thinking as a possible solution is to put a deed restriction on the main house to say it can't be more than 5 bedrooms.
It just feels like such a kludgy thing of like, we made this rule, okay, we were just kidding, we'll just put a label on it. You're adding 2 more bed, like, that's the part I struggle with, is like,
Sure.
what does it mean if we said, we will let you do this, but you cannot turn those into bedrooms? And I'm like, okay, you can turn them into bedrooms, but we'll have another equally enforceable thing that says, you won't do this in this house.
That's
Like,
why I
the
wanted
part
to see,
struggle with.
that's what I wanted to see the main house plan,
Yeah.
because a deed restriction saying that a house that has that many rooms, you're only gonna have 5 bedrooms, is literally a piece of paper. There's no
Right.
way
It's a
that we're gonna be
percentage.
able to enforce that or check
But I
that.
guess the question is, if the room is a subterranean room without egress, and it, like, I think there's a question.
That's why I
with
wanna
the-
look at
yeah,
the,
yeah.
It's the,
I wanna understand what it looks like.
Can I,
Can
I'll
I
be able to
ask-
keep all these papers that you're
Well,
showing.
the ones
right?
shown there, Ellen, are the
You've
building
already got these,
application.
I'll leave
Okay,
these
and
here.
then those
And
and
one other question.
everything
So
you're showing.
Yeah.
the system,
I need.
is there a reason it wasn't, since you had to go to 11 because of components? It's, the plans don't name it as an 11-bedroom system?
We asked that, but you wouldn't let us.
I don't know.
Because when it was first installed, it was as a 10-bed system.
Well, it was
You'd
just
have to-
accessible, a couple of accessible
Okay.
out there.
Oh,
When we
because
did-
it
when we did
was a
the-
replacement
Yeah.
and,
Right.
got it.
So we went by room count, and the attic
Yep.
that we're discussing tonight was also discussed during the
Oh, yeah,
presentations.
yeah, no, it says all that.
Yeah, it's interesting how it's come back.
They always do.
Okay.
So we've got, on the first floor, they've got a guest bedroom over here. They've got an office here, sitting room, another office here, and the main foyer where you come in, the double doors there. Large living room, dining room, and then this is one big area here with a kitchen, eating area, and kind of a billiards table there.
So that's 8 rooms?
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rooms.
Well,
Does
we
the
don't
foyer
count
count
the
as a foyer?
No, I don't think he did. He counted
did.
guest bedroom.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right,
Oh,
7
okay.
rooms there.
Okay. 7 rooms.
You already saved your room.
And then when we go upstairs, there's no upstairs to that guest bedroom, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms upstairs.
Mhm.
Now we're up to 11 rooms.
What's this?
That's this big closet area.
Okay, 11.
You're gonna get to 13 with the 2 rooms below
And
the
then
garage.
As we go down here, go through a mudroom, we go down a couple of steps, and then we have the theater, the fitness room, and then basement area underneath the garage.
And so you counted that as 2.
So it kind of gives us 2.
So we're at 13.
Yeah.
So how does that come to 5?
I have,
It doesn't. What they were saying is they have
13
5
rooms.
bedrooms that
Yeah.
they actually use as bedrooms.
But I think
Yeah,
we
then-
can't just not, so I guess the question, I'm not saying that I agree with the question. What's a struggle is, I guess you'd say, if you said that the 2 basement rooms don't count, though we've counted them before, and that's,
And they're finished.
well, they're finished, but if you have basement rooms below grade, which these seem like they meet the requirement for, then you can.
Well, are these below grade or not?
Yeah, but we're great, yeah.
Because you say you only walk down a couple steps.
Well, the topography is such that it all slopes down, so this part of the house is a little bit lower than the garage already, so you only have to go down a couple of steps to get to the basement.
But it's real, so
It's a
how
full
far?
basement and the cars park up above.
Okay, so the actual slab for that area is 6, 8 feet below ground surface?
Yeah.
I just think, Eric, that 2 need to be on one system and we need another system.
But I guess,
You can't count rooms last time and then not count them this time.
right, I think that for
Yeah,
me
we
is
have
the
a
tension of.
consistency issue.
Right, so I think for me, the question is whether I would have made the same choice that was made in 2015 as separate from the question, the fact that the Board of Health made that decision. And the only way I can see getting it to work is if you go back on that decision or reconsider it. Because the fact that people have chosen to use it as 5 rooms or 4 rooms or 2 rooms and 3 sewing rooms or whatever, you're sort of stuck.
Because there are really 3 buildings.
Well, there
I think the number of buildings
there are
are.
3
You know,
buildings.
And you
There's
can
no-
live in, with livable space. I mean, I'm not being stupid. I'm just saying that, we're being, like,
I don't
just
care.
ask, what is this craft room of? Is this truly a mudroom now, or is it a craft room here? I just don't know what that means.
It's, how to describe it, it's kind of it's like a split room type of neighborhood. As you go down one stairs, you go up one stairs, you've got space for a craft room there.
Oh, so it's like a loft inside the
Yeah,
room?
Yeah, I think you can describe it.
Okay.
like that.
So in theory, in 2015, had the board opted to do so, it could have excluded the 2 basement rooms from the room count. Having not done so, at the time it wasn't an issue, because at the time the homeowners' needs were different, and they said, that sounds fine, we just want to build these rooms. Now their circumstances have changed, and they want to go back. And I think, I hear the rationale, and if I were here in 2015, I'd be comfortable, based on the egress and the subterranean nature of the rooms, to kind of say this is excluded from the room count, but I don't feel comfortable going back on the decision of a prior board with no new facts about those rooms. Right? Like, we're not saying there's any different use case for them, so it's hard to say, the board decided this, now it's undeciding it, so you can do the thing that we said before you couldn't
Right,
do.
and we were discussing whether or not to grant the a deed recording, and then it just,
Right, but the board decided and said, like,
well,
not-
it became a moot point. I don't even think we came to a final determination on that. Is there a door between the guest bedroom and the guest sitting room?
I don't know.
Okay.
Not sure.
In the past, Mark, have we treated, I know we've seen master bedrooms that have,
Like 2 areas.
yeah,
Yeah. As
and
long
there's
as they-
one
as long-
way in through this room attached to the bedroom to get to the bedroom, so it's clearly they're intertwined.
Count
As
that
long
as
as there's
one
only
room.
one way
Right.
in.
Yeah.
It
So if
could
we
be
count that, does
considered.
that reduce the upstairs room count?
It reduces the,
You have to pass
No,
through the
that's
bedroom.
no, but
Downstairs.
it's gets it down to 12, so it's still an issue,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, right, 13 to 12, you're still at 6.
So what's the craft room? Is that, what is that?
It sounds like there's a loft in the mudroom.
Oh, because when, back in April of 2016, it said a
Kind of
craft room above the garage. I don't- Is that in existence, or?
I don't recall it, but
I mean, I'm just reading the notes, that's what.
it's a lot of house to walk through.
And so are there new people, they're living there right now?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that was part of the reason that we kind of just settled on calling those two rooms, because they wanted to keep on with
Occupy.
their project and move in.
Yeah.
It does seem like, going back to your point of combining 2 rooms on the second floor if they really want to use that space.
Yeah, makes sense. Unless he has 4 daughters living in that house, I mean, it makes sense.
Right, so didn't you say it was like is it one daughter, her husband, a baby, and then a second
And the other
daughter?
daughter, yeah.
But I think it's tricky. Like, I think what we've said for other cases is we have no idea who will live there 20 years from now, and this is a point of opportunity to sort of weigh in on that. So their pattern of use isn't the question.
Well, no, right, so that's why I'm saying if you could just get rid of one of the bedrooms on the second floor in the carriage house, then they could go ahead, put the master on the third floor, that would be 1 bedroom, then they'd only have 2 bedrooms. So is there any way of combining in the carriage house 2 of the 3 bedrooms?
I guess my question is, it feels like it could be very easy to try to solve this problem for the homeowner, but not knowing their kind of values.
I'm sure he doesn't.
Right,
Well,
but
what
so I
we're-
think for us, it's really the question of, is the Board of Health ready to say, no, it's cool, you can add a bedroom and not change anything? It sounds like the answer to that is no.
I don't think I'm comfortable doing
And
that.
so
So
if-
something would need to be
right.
modified to
Right.
somehow reduce the overall
And
room
rather than us
count.
kind of working through to say,
Yeah.
here's what we need to modify, I think our take-home is, given the prior decisions of the board, given the prior room counts that have been determined, given that we said we'll treat each, we sort of have done this with the rounding, because it looks like the minutes from, like, one of the 2016s are like, here are the room counts for it. We've got 22 rooms, but we're treating each building separately, which kind of goes back to your point, which then lets you round down. So 22 rooms is still 10 rooms for a system. It just feels like we're stacking thing on top of thing.
Yeah, and just in terms of what other people have done in campus settings, a lot of them have put in a separate septic for like a barn area or another area. So this is one septic serving, right, the entire campus.
But would still be limited to 10 bedrooms.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is other people who have multiple
here's
buildings
the
on a
septic for the-
campus have actually made
Here's
an
a septic
additional
for the-
septic system, so.
Right, except if they could do it without a variance, and I gather there's
Yeah.
nowhere on the property where
Because
you-
this is a replacement.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
originally
it's
had
not-
2 septic systems designed for this, one for the main house and the barn, and one for the carriage house. But, and we could design a separate system for the carriage house, not the soil for that area.
So, I mean, because that would solve,
But it would require variance to Sherborn regs.
What does it solve?
oh, because it's one, but it's unless they subdivided the property and gave it to
We'd have
the
to design
kid.
that septic system for 4 bedrooms,
Right,
and then we would still have 1 plus 6 would still have 7, so we're up to 11 bedrooms.
And that would be too many for a replacement. It was a replacement with variances.
oh, I see.
Yeah, based on the original.
So the only other option would be if they actually subdivided the property then and made that a separate.
But again, I would say
dwelling.
we're way, like, I
Yeah,
think.
no,
that-
no,
I
I'm
think-
just thinking,
I think it-
that's not our problem.
Capacity of the
Yeah.
septic system is not an issue
I just want to focus on the
Right.
interest of time,
Yeah.
because it feels like we could easily spend an hour on this. And so
Yeah.
I think the question that was asked is, would we go back on the decision of the prior boards for room count or the conditions to the attic? And it sounds like the kind of collective answer to that is probably not, barring some way to say, this is the new information that's different than what was present at the time that the board made the prior choice, or with alterations in the plans that reduced the total count so that it was compliant with the total room count.
That's kind of what we anticipated would
Yeah.
happen, which is why we thought that putting deed recording on the property to limit it to the maximum amount of bedrooms would be the solution.
Right, but then it's just tricky, because you're like, what does a deed recording accomplish, since you're totally not using it that way? You know what I mean? Like,
It's for the next person. I can just tell you from my experience, in a house like that, the next person can do anything
Right.
they want. It's a piece of
Right.
paper.
Right.
Because functionally, people could use those rooms as bedrooms.
So I guess, so the question for the board then is, like, my own comfort level with the deed recording is limited, especially in a property that's kind of come back with this pattern of use. And with the pattern we're describing, like, those are really, like, we can say this is this many bedroom system, but somebody can say, okay, great, it's a that many bedroom system. I've got.
I'm gonna have an extra,
I'm
I'm
gonna-
making this a
The
bedroom.
reason we do garbage grinder recordings and bedroom recordings is so they're aware of the situation, and they do it at their own risk. I'm sure
Right.
there's garbage grinders in Sherborn at homes that have garbage
Right.
restrictions.
But I would say for
They
the
do it
question
at
of
their own
like, do I want to be a party to that? I don't. You know, for the question of, we're adding this space, we're adding it specifically to house additional family members. We're doing it specifically to expand the number of people using the system. But you shouldn't think of it that way. It's a hard thing for me to say that I'm doing my due diligence, because it's not just their own risk, it's the people whose properties are in their wells and the other pieces. So it's not like I'm closer to my own well than I should be. It's you're making this choice for your neighbors and others. And that's the part I struggle with a little bit. About, does a deed restriction feel like a credible restriction? For subterranean room, to me it does, to previous boards it didn't. But to finished attic space that we used as a master suite, that's tougher for me. And I think I don't feel comfortable going back on the decision of a prior board.
So, you know, I would have to read this over several times and think back, but as I recall, you know, so here on April 6, 2016, the board did talk about that the basement rooms below the garage, however, must be deed restricted, but then later it was resolved that we didn't even have to vote on that
Because,
or finish considering it, is
Because
my
they-
recollection,
Oh.
because then the plans came back and they
Right.
said, never mind, here's what we've got, we can
Right.
count every room,
Well,
and
so
we
if the-
still fit into it.
Right.
So we never made a
well, so
determination
if the
on
board never
that.
made a determination, to me that feels separate. And then we can
So-
answer the question for the subterranean rooms, which would de facto answer the question for this.
But I'd like, so do you recall, I mean,
What
there's
happened?
too many of these cases, but
We took-
I remember agonizing
this-
over how we were gonna do it, whether it would be for one or two
and
of the rooms, and then,
swapped it for the underground space, basically.
But you didn't get rid of the underground space.
no,
No, we
and,
got rid of this
Right,
space.
right. So in the original plans that were being
Original plans,
considered.
This could
Right.
have been subdivided into 2 rooms.
Right.
Um,
So let's frame it differently, because if we say we gave up this to get that, but now we'd like this, that's hard for me. If we say the Board of Health never decided on this from a deed restriction standpoint and instead was rendered moot and not opined on by a prior board, then I feel fine saying, great, let's opine on that. What's the result in room count and how do you do it?
so, I mean, I would like to try to, I mean, that's what I see here, what I've
Yeah.
read admittedly very quickly while also trying to listen
Yeah.
and read. So,
It does say though, yeah, okay, so it does say the basement rooms below the garage, however, must be deed restricted. 12 bedrooms, if they keep the 12 bedrooms.
I mean, not that we decided that that would be okay to proceed. Now I'm also wondering if the craft room never got appropriately reflected on the plans, and it was missed in the count, which bumps up the room count.
Yeah, because this definitely talked about a craft room above the garage.
Yeah, as not being counted as a bedroom, but being counted
But
as
as
a
a
room.
room,
And
yeah.
it's not on here,
Yeah.
so we never would have counted it again. So, one, we'd need a correct plan, so that we know what we're really counting, and whether we're deed restricting or considering deed restricting 1 or 2 rooms. So, and,
But then
you know, I
you're
just wish if this was really anticipated back then, that we could have had a complete set of things to decide. It feels a little funny to say, no, this is all we want, we're all done.
Oh, we actually want the
Oops,
first
no,
thing.
changed our minds, and I get, people change their minds
Can
all the
you
time,
repeat-
but,
They did want this.
But once I gave it up for some,
It got so confusing with bedroom
Yeah.
counts and things.
but I think that, like, for me, makes it harder when you're like, this was too complicated, we couldn't get what we want, so then we did it in 2 steps. Like, for me, like, I think reframing it would be helpful for me to get my head around it and feel comfortable when we finally
They also
decide.
wanted to build the home and get on with their life.
No, I totally get that, but you can't have both.
right,
Right,
but,
and
I
so
mean,
if
we
so I
mentioned
think
that we
need-
would consider
Oh,
it, so then
Right.
it went away, so that's.
But so I would just say the next time we talk about this, let's not frame it that way and frame it instead as, we are happy to revisit the room count, but if you say we did this to get that and now we want both, I'm never going to be able to vote for that because you made a choice.
Well,
If
Alan
you s-
will put that in the notes.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot for us to explore in the prior minutes and to kind of evaluate it. And if
Yeah.
anything that wasn't considered by prior board seems like it's in scope, but we need the updated plans to be able to say with confidence this is exactly what it is, and then we can revisit in that context.
And one of the most important standards you'll have to consider is you've only allowed 1 additional bedroom per house, a unit, a facility. In this
Yeah.
case, the whole facility was
Right.
considered for the 1 additional bedroom,
And so,
based
It-
on its
You mean all
necessity.
3?
All 3.
Yeah.
That was discussed back a meeting before the other meeting you were reviewing, and the fact that assessors' records allowed them to go to the 10 bedrooms.
okay.
Within-
go to 10,
11.
11.
10 to 11 with the additional bedroom.
So we're at 9:15, and I feel like we could talk longer, but we need more information to
Okay,
talk
so,
specifically.
yeah, we need to have more time to digest this, and then,
I'm gonna need to take all those
yeah, we need
papers that
more
you-
accurate,
And those 2 down there, too. Could you
mapping.
present
Ellen, those are
them?
with the building application, so.
Oh, they go with the building
Yeah, we'll
application?
put them back in afterwards.
Oh, okay, I'll keep it out separate.
But the building application right now, I'm gonna reject until further notice. There's no need to have it staying open, because the Board of Health has not made a decision. It's been open for a little bit of time now, since October 9th. So the building inspector sometimes by right needs to approve these or just, and will not wait. So if the board's okay with that, I can reject it and then later on approve it. I've done that many a times, but I just want the board to know the action I'm taking.
We get some better plans on themselves.
Yeah.
And then I think we just also need to just like mull the specifics of
And a clear description of the rooms in the basement, windows, egress,
Right.
all that kind of stuff,
Right.
so that we can factor that in, or not.
And I think, just like, to be honest, when I read about that there's everything but a range down there too, it also, I'm not saying that counts as a kitchen, I
Right.
get that, but they're putting a lot of stuff into each of these areas, including the
point that you can't
subterranean
have
areas.
all of what you
Yeah,
want.
so I'm just, it's starting to feel more and more like they're using each thing kind of as its own separate area, and like, what's to
Apartment.
say someone can use that as
Right.
a bedroom?
Yeah,
So,
or an apartment, which
Yeah,
then
that's what I'm
makes,
saying.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
more use of the.
Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Okay, always good
Yeah.
for a brain teaser, though.
Interesting.
So for this proposal, the bedroom count is exceeded, is what I'll put.
Right,
Yep, for checking that box.
and I guess if there's, right, yeah.
What's next? I've guaranteed a 10 o'clock finish.
59 North Main.
Bedroom.
They're 3 separate things.
Yeah, you have basically the 2 well houses, and I'll be right with you after I write the word exceeded.
Or we can jump to 3 Prospect Street complaint. That's an
I can
interesting
explain
one.
that one too, if you want.
Yeah.
Whichever you want.
Oh, what were you about to do that you?
I was gonna bring out the plans for
It's, it's
59 North Main,
pro-capital.
but I can talk about the complaint as well. I'm all done with the rejection on
Oh,
the
all right.
thing.
Real estate.
All right, does anyone have a preference?
I'm writing down
Prospect or
3
59 North
prospects.
Main?
I just wrote
Prospect.
3
It's in-
prospects.
Oh, we're on
Let's do
3
it.
Prospect.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so on 3 Prospect, I received an email from our town administrator. And in receiving it, I was also involved with a discussion with our building commissioner. And then a call to the applicant. And the reason I say the applicant, we're not for sure if he's the owner, and according to the building commissioner, he's not.
The pro
The person building it. Pro Capital are the owners, but I deal with an applicant that's in the front end of this.
What's he an applicant for?
For the project. He's the front person, I would say, for the project.
He
But
was
what is the
septic-
project?
The septic replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a septic
He's been-
replacement.
So basically, what he's planning to do is the house over. It has been an abandoned house for many years, but I explained to him that the concern is the yard is getting junk, there's junk in the yard, and if it has use, put it in the garage, or at least remove it or cover it over with a tarp. And then as it relates to the house, I asked him the question, when do you plan on starting the house? You know you can start it right now. And he said, we're looking to do it soon. He didn't give me an exact date. You know, I thought they were so anxious they'd have that done by now.
Are there deadline, like, can
There's no
somebody?
deadline.
Does
The
it
board-
expire?
No, the system's in, and the board said he didn't have to put the septic tank in because the house is so dilapidated that they didn't want any danger
Yeah.
from trying to put the septic tank in, so, but he's been given permission to move forward, but again, I don't
But we
know
don't
what's,
have, if he doesn't
Okay.
move forward.
there's
we
no
don't have-
deadline now that he's got the system in, but he's
I
got
lived
to.
across from one of these for years,
Yeah.
with who used to be across the street from me.
Oh, that's right, yes.
And it's basically, they're using it like a C&D.
Yeah.
Well, and then,
Construction and
But that-
debris disposal area
Right.
versus any of the actual permitted uses.
I told him.
And I had a big,
And
that's
Board
not
of-
permissible.
Is that Board of Health or Concom or something?
Planning board.
It's planning board and zoning.
Yeah.
well, and then that's where the building commissioner came in. I said to our building commissioner, I said, Chris, you know, on the trucks, I can't do anything about them. That's more your
Yeah.
jurisdiction. So he said he was going to work to make sure it's not being used as a business. It's only to be renovated and completed, not a
It's a
business.
construction yard.
Right.
And
Yeah,
It's
well,
it's clear.
That's where the zoning's being broken, and that's really.
Right, so that's not our purview,
that's zoning,
unfortunately.
building
And has there
commission.
been any so I think that there's an assertion by the abutters that there've been multiple complaints made to town hall. Have those complaints come to us?
No.
So then
We
that's,
checked.
so that's a question, the answer for David is that we haven't received complaints, and then
We
for our
have
own
not.
Well,
consideration.
is he send it to the select board?
I don't know. I sent it to the chair. Darryl, you got a
No,
copy
but
of
then
my email,
David
right?
emailed us and said, you know, did we get a piece of it? And I think the answer of Board of Health is no, we haven't received requests for records that have been unresponded to. And then the question we have
He
is,
sent it to multiple.
no, right, but I think we can just answer on behalf of us. We haven't gotten it. Other people,
Well, I think Mark's already answered
I did. I
on
answered
behalf
the.
of
Board of Health.
Board of
Yeah.
Health.
And then-
so-
And David responded, thank you.
Okay, so it sounds
So are
like
we
we're
done?
resolved.
Well, I still have to make sure he follows suit of what I've required, and that is to, if the wood is good and you're gonna use it, top over it. Or stack it up like most people
No,
would.
but that's not firewood. There's like bricks in there.
Yeah, this is construction debris.
Well, and then the other thing was, and by all means, you know, I did say if it's useless material, it's gotta be moved and properly and legally disposed.
But is that Board of Health?
That's
No.
us, well, to some degree, because that's
And do we-
useless material.
And-
I can,
Right, and do we have a fine or
Nuisance
other
laws
things
are
to
Board of
enforce
Health.
that?
So
Right?
it's
I
a
said that for
combination of
years.
many
Laws are Board of
departments'
Health.
efforts, you know.
But so
we-
what's our enforcement mechanism? So if we say
I could
that,
start finding him.
so do we want to start finding them?
Well, I gotta check the site to make sure he hasn't
Right,
cleaned
so
it
maybe,
up.
so Mark, if you can check the site to see if a fine is warranted, and if it is, to initiate
I think
fines.
so.
And do we have non-criminal disposition, Ellen, under our, I can't remember, I get confused with this.
I think so,
Did
but
we adopt
I-
it? If we didn't adopt
Like
it, the
a
I
next
think the
step would
town
be
did,
a
yes. The
criminal.
town did.
The town did.
Yes.
So that way we can do non-criminal disposition. That usually wakes them right up when I say, if they adopted what is the correct non-criminal disposition, it's $100 for the first day,
Yeah.
200 for the second,
Right,
and
so
300
that-
for
so-
every day
If
thereafter.
check the site and it appears to follow, then we should begin to enforce
I-
that based on the complaint
yeah,
of the
and I-
butter.
Someone had done
And
that.
I always ask,
And
do you
also,
want to spend
what
money
about
with
you?
the fines or move
No,
out?
I called. No, nothing.
Well, no, so it sounds like in terms of our follow-up, we've communicated and we're now responding to the issue and the scope that's related to us, which is the nuisance laws related to the debris pile.
And then in terms of like the
Commercial
construction
truck traffic,
vehicles and the
that's
truck
planning
stuff,
board.
that's not us.
That would be under
Zoning?
zoning,
Yeah.
building commissioner.
And Mark, is there anything else you need from us to go down that road, or are you good to go?
No, it was an update and making sure you understand what's happening, and we'll go
Sounds
from there.
Sounds
I'll
good.
go out and inspect it tomorrow, Friday the latest. He knew that was his deadline, the end of this week, so.
59 North Main?
And as long as everyone knows too that in terms of health, compliance, septic, all the rest, that they're on track and okay.
They're not in
And
violation.
nothing is holding them up
They
from
can do that house right now.
taking care of
Board
it.
of Health is
money,
not the right
probably.
limits now.
We can't force them to do that work, but they should, the
But I
building
think-
commissioner
but I
can
think
make sure
your
it's
point is,
safe.
Board of Health is not the rate limiting step that has prevented this project from moving forward
Yes.
appropriately.
That's correct. They could have moved forward, I think, a couple months ago.
59 North Main.
And I thought that this was very poetic, one stiff breeze short of
Yeah,
collapse.
that was.
59 North Main.
59 North Main. I have two sets of plans.
You should have the
Three?
And the
three.
third one.
You're going to do the revision to the previously approved plan first,
And then the
And
two
then the
wells,
okay.
and then the
the
two
well
wells?
houses, yeah.
Do the wells separate. 7 is the 40B. Okay, so we'll do that one first. So we had some grading changes out there. These are utility changes.
I saw the 50% sold sign.
I saw that too.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wow, that's going fast, I thought.
You think it's just
I
marketing?
don't know if it's a whole development or just the two foundations.
So, our two foundations.
Yeah, they sold one of them, 50% sold.
I never thought of it that way.
Before they
I-
disappear.
Yeah.
I go bye-bye
This is
when my
the
term's up.
subdivision, the septic system is
You-
already installed.
Sherborn, yeah.
And they basically have shown where the new water distribution sheds are located, one here and one right next to it.
It's freezing in here.
Yeah, I got cold here. So there's your
Yeah,
water
it's been cold.
distribution shed.
Even I did. It's cold.
They originally were proposed for the units, the affordable units, but they changed it to put them in outside sheds that will be climate controlled, lodged, and it was a good move, because the large tanks, big pump, big
We thought,
sump.
yeah. I was.
We thought it was gonna
I think
be
that was what we said, we
unfair
thought
to
was
the affordable
non-compliant with the
Absolutely.
affordable inhabitants that they got
That's
to have.
environmental justice
So,
written all over
Yeah,
it.
right.
There's a little bit of, conservation information on here too, that's for the drainage.
Wait, so I see one, where's the second one?
One here and right there.
Oh, okay.
And then the lines are going around the back of the homes,
Mhm.
which is a good thing.
Mhm.
The sewer's going in the front,
Yeah.
so there's no more crossovers.
Yeah.
And then this well goes around and starts to get these homes. And these, I believe it's these two are in, so yes. They did apply for a third, I believe the third was right here. So I'd recommend approval of the minor grading change.
I think it's good changes.
Yeah, oh yeah, especially the water lines, that would be more our concern, not the crossovers. So,
Yep, good. No,
What's this?
basically,
That's
they've,
drainage, so they actually have
Stormwater.
drainage there, so all the water coming off the
Okay,
streets
all right,
will
yeah.
be directed into a filtration area and then dispersed, or I believe they're using Caltex. Because there was confusion when they first came in here that that was a septic. I said, remember I kept saying, I don't have septic plans. and-
Yeah.
And there was some confusion that people thought the Caltex were for the septic. I said, no, that's not the septic. That's the drainage.
and it's too bad that they didn't do low-impact development, since this is old,
Forest
old
roads
approach.
and stuff, no?
Well, distributed rain
Oh,
gardens
yeah, I got you.
and,
Yeah, it's disperse it
Yeah.
more
Yep.
throughout and
Yep.
versus right there.
so old-fashioned, I can't believe people do it anymore, but.
But yeah, I don't know. if-
Economics.
Or not that, no, actually, they find the low-impact development is comparable or less.
No, I'm saying though, did they think that that approach though would save
We
them?
brought it up in their initial discussions, but I think it's more that people aren't always familiar with the other, and so then they're hesitant to do it.
So, and then I can show you the well sheds for each set of units. Maybe else, okay with this?
No, these are the things we were asking for way back.
Because I'm the conditions on it.
So do we have a motion to approve the revised plan as
So
presented?
moved. Second?
All those in favor?
Is there a thermostat in this room?
There's
that's in the other
thermostat.
room.
Yeah, I'll go try to find it.
I don't usually get
I think it's.
No,
typical.
I've been wearing my leather jacket.
Yeah, you're usually
And I'm always like
half-dressed.
the hot,
It's like, I think the AC's literally on.
yeah.
Well, they put the AC
Yeah,
on.
yeah, it's like 51 degrees, let's
Yeah,
cool it
no,
down.
this is, you know if I'm cold, that there's an issue.
What's it,
So
what's
that was
this
the
one?
first thing,
We
right?
need to do anything?
And so now we have the
Now we're
two,
doing- oh, here it is.
Approve two different
Wells.
wells.
What's the,
There's just
What's the
lots
field
of
to
it.
it?
I needed a wheel.
I don't know, it just came, so I, it's not on there.
It's like 2 trips if you didn't notice. So
oh, this is just the old one from, we saw
is
this one
for
already.
units, and I was gonna
This
start.
is the uranium one?
Units 1 through
That's-
6.
I
And
don't know.
they gave us the plans. The plans are pretty much the same as what you just saw. but I'm not- Because there are additional pages that show the inside. I just don't want to hit the microphones, but pretty much the plan is, so I know I'd highlighted them, showing the shed on the shed here. Come over here.
Okay.
This is the inside of the shed.
you found it? Oh,
Very large tank, I read, it's on here. And then they have the pressure tanks here. It's a very large production. They gotta get so much pressure based on the height of where this is versus the highest plumbing fixtures in the facility. So these are, this is units 1 through 6, so this one should do that. And then they show you, and I can show you on this too. The equipment. Constructed for what is the building. They're gonna look like sheds. Because of our good size sheds. And get the plumbing, and well water. Sheds and the information, and they are climate controlled. I think it was note 10. Some note here about how they're planning to.
I know, but I was like.
The water would freeze in the very large pumps and wells themselves. So they've definitely changed these to not be residential wells per se. They realize the engineering that's needed to get this water to all these properties. The pitches.
I mean, 6-inch diameter,
So,
that's pretty
to
impressive.
get out of putting in a public water supply, they've got just 24 people for each well.
Right, and
So-
they're under the limit.
What an
Yeah.
incredible coincidence.
Yeah.
I mean, 6-inch diameter, that's,
It's a big pipe.
Yeah.
That's the diameter of the distribution line that's running around.
that's the diameter of
Oh,
the
the
well.
well bore?
Yeah.
So-
That's a really big well, though.
Like I said, they have booster pumps.
And there's 2 of them.
Yeah. Each supplies six units, right? Yeah.
But I'm gonna recommend both. You're gonna see the same thing in both.
For the
Some diagrams of the tank.
Well, we had them do drawdown tests.
as well as-
So we had them
Before
do
I
this.
was on the board,
Yeah,
this
before you were on the
was-
board, yeah. We actually.
Because I know they were,
I was
They put
impressed.
transducers in.
What is this?
The
they
filtration.
pulled out that simulated or the same
Yeah,
amount
they
of water.
put it at like the max and they ran it for the required number of hours.
And
No.
nobody's wells went dry nearby.
For the
least
ones
for
that
the
they were
test.
allowed to test, yeah.
I guess it'll be up to the condo
No, but we absolutely have them.
board to whatever,
Because
Yeah,
that
no,
was-
that's why I was
to
gonna ask.
maintain the filters and all the rest.
What?
That's a
Because
concern.
they are
I,
private.
I know,
You know, for the
That's-
other
I
development.
know, that's why
That's the only
I
thing
asked,
that
because
I
I
always
get
had issues with,
two
no matter what
6-inch.
subdivision was, is that you lose insight to the needed maintenance unless there's a maintenance and operation plan.
Right. And that came up with the fields when they were going to have all separate, so, you know, it might be something we could recommend to ZBA.
That's
Coming
nice.
low.
Especially, this is a water distribution system, 6 homes.
Yeah. No, and if people just forget about the filters over time,
We could,
they may release stuff back into the water if they get too filthy, so.
you know, suggest
Or fail.
testing the water and treating them almost like public water supply would be treated.
Yeah.
Something like fire alarm first.
Oh, no, that's just my pager.
High-tech,
is that your
HVAC,
That's my pager.
Oh, I
operations.
thought it was the
Oh,
heat.
no.
For units 1 through 6, I recommend the well proposal distribution system, well system and distribution plan as presented,
Okay.
with
do-
the caveat that a maintenance process occurred possible. I don't know what we can.
Yeah, I
state
don't know
in
if
that.
we can require that, but maybe we'll just ask Ellen to send an email to Jeannie advising the ZBA that we recommend
A
that,
maintenance plan?
yeah, that there is a maintenance plan.
Filters and- They should clean these wells, that's why they put the spigots on them every so often,
That there be a maintenance plan to
for all filtration.
maintain the filtration system and other components, the water supply. Just a recommendation.
I would
Okay, so,
recommend that,
do we have a motion to approve, that was well two? You
that's
said?
for well number
That was
2.
one.
Yep,
Oh, that was
okay.
two.
Units 1 through 6.
On here, it says well two
Oh, I
serves
have-
7 to 12.
Yeah, did I get the numbers wrong?
Yeah, this, the
Well,
next one is,
2
the one we
serves,
just looked at is well 2.
okay, so I,
Units 1 through 6.
Okay.
I know it's what you would expect.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Okay. All right, so do we have a motion to approve plans for well 2?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so basically, that was this well, 2 for units 1 through 6 coming up here. And
Okay.
then units 7 through 10, unit 12, 7 through 12. You have this well, this shed, this well here, going through 7 through 12. So this is the same plans, almost identical.
Oh, okay.
And I'd recommend the same,
Okay.
recommend approval based on the previous approval with the maintenance.
Mhm. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve well 1?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Great, thank you. Oh, boy, getting close. All right. So, we have review of draft letter on open space plan. And I got a note that comments on the open space and recreation plan are closed, but I did submit some just minor stuff on some of the comments about water. And I don't know if anyone had a chance to read it, but let's see if I can find my notes. All right, well, as soon as I find my notes. So I looked through it and I thought we could comment because they said it would be helpful to have input from boards. And I thought what they did a great job of from the Board of Health perspective. Why am I, oh, it's stuck, okay. Was that they included important information about water resources in the town and how critical they are, and that, kind of how they fit in with other issues that they were talking about. And they weave it in. So whether we wrote some sort of letter, and I want to get a sense from you, and then maybe I could work with you tomorrow, Ellen, on finalizing it, if the board wants to do that, and submit a letter at all. But here are just some general thoughts, and the final sentences, I don't know what we'd end up with, but I said, having reviewed the open space and recreation plan for the town of Sherborn, the Sherborn Board of Health would like to make the following basic comments regarding the plan. Here are just some ideas. Given the importance of the quantity and quality of water resources in the town to the Board of Health, the information communicated in the plan about this topic is much appreciated, one approach. The information is educational for residents and for others who may also enjoy the open spaces and recreational opportunities in Sherborn. While concise, the plan appropriately identifies various relationships between open space topics and water supply issues of protection and sustainability. And then I thought we could make an offer that if anyone had need for further details about drinking water wells or septic systems, after they read through the open space plan, if there are just any questions in general, that people could come talk to the Board of Health to supplement, because obviously the open space and recreation plan primary goal was not to discuss water, but it was brought up quite frequently throughout certain sections, so.
People don't realize that Board of Health actually is
People,
in a lot
people,
of different areas.
people can't.
Whoa, doesn't look good. What'd you say?
It's just hard to hear from you even here with the new fan in the
Sorry.
background. The fan in the background and you speaking very quietly
Yeah.
makes it even hard to hear. So imagine also hard for the mic.
I turned the fan off, but then he did something because he said it was going to be noisy.
You want the mic?
Do you want me to go
No,
turn
no,
it
I'm
off?
good.
Yeah,
I just want you to
no,
talk
it's-
louder.
Okay.
Or we could pull the mic
What I
over
was
to you.
saying- That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
But what were you saying, Rebecca?
I know I talk with a low voice. All I said is that it's amazing that sometimes issues that are pertinent to the Board of Health are evident in things that we don't realize. That's all. It was not an important comment.
Anything else to add to the open space plan?
Excuse me.
Any other comments?
Thank you for reading that.
I just didn't know, does the board want to, in general, express something about the plan for their inclusion? They're getting letters from various boards and committees.
I think it's good to have communication between the committees. I think it's great to reinforce the comments that you made, that they are noticed, even though they didn't think it was important, then they recognized that some issues that were relevant. So I think that's great.
No, I think they think it's important,
Yeah,
but it's, I expected to see that in the master plan. I wasn't really expecting to see as much. Again, it's not, that's why I said it was concise. It wasn't very detailed, but it was good as someone's reading along, say, oh, this may have a bearing on water quality or septic placement or some other thing, so. So, I don't know if you want to approve in theory, and then I'll hash this out with Helen tomorrow, or have any other comments.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other general concepts you think we should relay? No, okay. I was thinking short, because there wasn't a lot.
I feel good about
just-
short,
Yeah, concise.
brief.
Yeah. Okay. Uh-oh. So, all right, so do we have a motion to authorize me to write a letter on behalf of the board to the authors of the open space and rec, or for inclusion as some sort of attachment to the open space and recreation plan?
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. You in tomorrow, Ellen?
Yep.
Excellent.
Caterers and catering?
Yes.
Ellen, it looks like you pulled this together for us.
I did. I did.
Actually, where? Ah. Okay.
I mean, I just looked at what I could find online, and this was the most.
Yeah, no, I thought this was really interesting and nice because we don't have to reinvent the wheel necessarily, just pick the,
Yeah, I'd like,
Spokes we
I
want
think
to
in terms of
include.
streamlining, it looked like a great template for us to follow.
And which one in particular?
Well, just having like, so that they first, get approved sort of by the town, and then they don't have to reapply with a license fee every time.
Right.
They just have to provide us the menu. And I think if we make that sort of the caterer's responsibility, then we're also gonna make sure we have notification about every event, so we can really confirm the less than 60, which, to me, that was the piece that I was like, what's the mechanism? I'm supportive of the events, but just making sure that we can actually track it. So that seemed like a really nice compromise that doesn't seem like it's adding any extra work or money sort of to the process. So I liked it. Was that Concord? Which one was that?
Yeah.
I like Concord better than Lincoln.
Yeah, I like the Concord. So is that something, so how do we do that? Like, how do we propose something like that?
I think we just do find and replace. I think let's just do,
But I mean, we have the complete authority to do that. That's more my question. So we can just,
For the forms and that
Yeah,
kind of
what do you-
thing, so does that?
I would,
You can approve the forms. I had to check that for another situation. They're allowed to change and modify.
so can
Because-
someone create a template geared to our town?
I mean, it
from
seems
that?
like this is a template.
yeah, and just put,
Find
Put
and
up
replace.
Sherborn?
I mean-
Sherborn.
Cross out Concord, right, and Sherwood.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Change the addresses and phone numbers.
Yeah, if you want. Otherwise, you could be like, they can call Lincoln and Concord.
I mean, I can work with Beth
I think working
Perfect.
definitely with Beth makes
and,
sense.
and just make up
All right.
the forms.
Adapt the forms to
I mean,
Sherborne's
yeah.
needs and policies.
Start stamping.
Thank you for doing this work.
Right, and Beth just went through this with the most recent event that was at
The gala.
Silverwood. Yeah, so.
So like,
that-
if
it was
it
a
was gonna be
caterer.
the same caterer, you just check off the multiple event license. And, I mean, it probably makes sense for them anyway to just have like a few caterers that they work with versus having, it's additional expense, it's kind of a hassle for everybody, time consuming, so
Yeah,
if
it
they
depends
pick
on
like.
it, who's choosing. If
Right.
it's always people coming in, they might.
Trying to get it.
And do we,
But I've, like, when
Chinese food
I've,
and-
yeah, but when I've rented place, like, they say, here are the approved list of caterers or something, and they give you a choice, like, you know,
November
3, 4,
7th.
5, and
Yes.
that way, it's easy for us, it's easy for them, it's easy for the people having the events.
Okay.
sounds good. Do we need to vote on anything?
No, you were instructing me to work with Beth
I
and,
thought we gave it
So
some instruction.
how do these fees compare to ours?
well, we don't have a base of.
Well, that
we
one doesn't
have-
really
Yeah, we
apply. To
have
me,
a
it feels like there
caterer's
should be a
permit,
fee.
which is
My margin
$50. So,
Like, a 150 a
is-
year
but
seems
then
very reasonable,
yeah,
right?
because actually for like the, well, it's not really a caterer, but for the library fair with the different vendors, it's 150
Total,
total.
right.
So they're not
I mean, this is
caterers,
different.
I feel like if the
it's-
agent
yeah.
has to check every time, that there should be some sort of a fee with every event, because the agent has work.
No,
But she doesn't
no, but it's
necessarily.
just, all they're doing is submit, like, so once she approves, like, this application for a caterer for Sherborn, for Sherborn, then they're just required to just send the menu. So she's gonna make sure that they had the training, that they have the warning, the warming stuff, and that they basically know what they're doing. And so then she just does a confirmation, and that doesn't mean that she might not spot check every once in a while. I think that's perfectly okay. But, she's not gonna need to go out and re-inspect the same caterer every time if they satisfy her.
Yeah, because then they should know what they're doing.
Right.
And she talks to folks too, to see if they
Yeah.
really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, questions. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good model. But so what did we, so forgetting the library fair, for like the Grange fair, or other things, like a single event is 35, like what do we charge them?
50,
We charge them 50.
yeah.
So I don't know, so maybe,
But then there may be, oh, is that, yeah, I guess it was.
yeah. I think 150 seems, I don't know. Between 150 and 200, that feels like the right ballpark, you know, for.
Annual, I guess, and you and Beth could talk over just how much effort it takes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so now we have the Select Board request for Board of Health comments on the town's tree policy. So we haven't officially received a request from them.
No,
Yet. Nothing
no,
came in
we
yet.
have not received anything from the selectmen.
So at
Or
the meeting
anyone.
where I was present at the meeting where they said they want to get input from all the boards. They said they were going to get input from all the boards at that meeting, the
They said
selectmen's
what?
meeting. They were going to get input from all the boards on the second.
Okay.
Can't
I
hear.
wanted to know, I had an idea, and I want to propose this to you, because I know a lot about this subject matter. I know a lot about the subject matter because I happened to be on the original committee that spent 2 years forming that policy. It was very comprehensive. And I am on the Public Safety Committee, so I'm familiar with the recent discussions and concerns and issues. I wanted to know what you guys would think. There's a very small, specific area where public health is relevant. The vast majority of the materials are not probably, arguably, public health. And I want to know what you would think about me producing a document, if we could postpone the discussion
To
to the
what,
next
a
meeting.
document?
What?
I'm sorry,
I
I
wanted to
didn't,
know
I
if I
can't hear
could
you.
produce a document for
Sure.
the board, and then you guys could make comment that might be sort of concise and focused.
So is it
If you would
public
have
health
an
or
interest
public
in that.
safety? I guess that's my
Well, okay,
question.
it's both. I mean, what?
I mean, so when I read this, I mean, obviously, the question is, you know, we want to prevent accidents.
Right.
And reduce fatalities
Right.
and the severity of a crash, if a crash
Yeah.
were to occur. And, so is that public safety?
So, all right, so may I answer your question with a more broad comment? The original policy was extremely comprehensive and covered everything that most tree policies in municipalities, from cities to towns in Massachusetts and other
who
states.
made that policy?
It was an appointed committee that was appointed jointly, it was a bipartisan committee, just kidding, between the selectmen and the planning board. There were 12 or 13 members. There were arborists who were consulted, the tree warden himself was on the committee. It was very thoughtful, there was quite a bit of debate. The questions and the debates haven't changed at all in 20 years. The material, the substantive material hasn't changed either.
So do we need anything new, or can we just?
Well, so I
make
guess
sure-
your
Well,
question, to
let me
rephrase
just,
it is.
let me
is-
just finish the answer.
Okay.
So there were some individuals who have specific concerns with the original policy. The material that they have concerns about is thoroughly addressed in the original policy, but the statement that has been made is that safety wasn't addressed in the original policy. So the reason justifying the revision was that safety wasn't addressed,
Okay.
okay? So, because public health, our charge is public safety, and we know that things like seatbelts and
But I guess like we don't actually
speed
regulate.
limits and,
But we
you
don't,
know,
but so I think your question, I just want to make sure, because I hear what you're saying, and we talked about this last year, and so I just want to make sure, is the question, would we be happy to read something you prepared? Or is the question, does the Board of Health believe that it has standing in regulating trees because it affects human safety?
I don't think she was asking. I was asking.
Yeah.
I was asking, like, what's the line between
Because I think
public
things that
safety
can
and
hurt
then
people,
Board of Health?
like,
Yeah.
we don't regulate firearms for Board of Health, but firearms can hurt people.
Or
No, but like wearing seatbelts and
Sprinklers.
having, speed limits are public health measures that are under the Department of Public Health, that are considered to be public
But-
health,
but I think
which
that's-
influence human behavior, which is preventing
But wouldn't everything under
injuries.
safety, by definition, affect public health, because that's what
Yeah.
makes
I
it
mean-
safety? And that to me
That's
feels
what
like-
I'm struggling with, because to
Right.
me, I think it sounds more like public safety, which, of course, health is a
Right.
piece of that. We
Right.
want to prevent injury and
But
things like
everything-
that.
Right.
But that's, I'm not sure that's us.
Right, the problem is, I understand how you feel, and that's why I wanted to ask you if you would allow me to produce a document that might be able to address only the small area where it may actually
I
involve
think
us.
if you want to produce a document,
And you guys can comment on it and decide,
Right.
and contribute, or whatever.
my piece is, I'm happy to read and contemplate anything. For me, my own personal belief is I think the tree piece is out of scope for our kind of jurisdictional scope of regulations we have. Having said that, I could be wrong, and I'm happy to read something, but by reading it, I don't mean to imply that feels like it's in scope and we're generating policy because we've agreed it's in
Right,
scope.
are we issuing it as a board document, or are you?
No. Well, it would, I think, here's the first question that was raised was why the original policy was being replaced. And if the comprehensive policy that was made by a big group had failed, and there was no evidence of that.
Okay,
Right?
so,
So, in the copy of the document where you can see where edits were made, and you read it, and you know the details, you know what's going on, there's actually almost no substantive difference between the two, except some very large sections have been removed. But the argument that is being made specifically has to do with safety, and the part that does overlap public health from my medical perspective is driver behavior. Intoxication, drug use,
But I
marijuana.
think so from my standpoint, like, those
isn't
are
that
all.
police?
Like, that's not us.
No, it's not. Yes, it overlaps it, but so in our town, we have a public safety committee, which is an ad hoc committee. And the reason we're asked to be on it, and I've been sitting on it for 3 years, is because in a lot of towns, this material is covered by the selectmen and the Board of Health.
But in our town, at least having read the regs, although it's been a while, like, we don't speak to it. So I don't think we can add it to our jurisdiction
It's not
if
in
we
our,
don't have.
it's not
No,
in
no,
our
no,
charter.
they're just asking for input. They're
Right.
just asking for input, and I think it's exactly the same thing as with Daryl.
What I would say is I'm
We have
totally
some
happy-
comments that I think we could make.
I'm totally happy to read something that you produce. I remain deeply skeptical that something being safety means it's Board of Health, because
Okay.
because otherwise everything the police do,
Speeding.
like much of what the fire department does, all of those would be in the purview of our supervision, and it doesn't feel to me like they are.
I don't think it's about supervision. I think it's
Oversight.
about principle, about prevention of disease and
Right,
and
but I think,
influencing
like, some of
What about a
behavior.
fire, what about smoke alarms? What's the purpose of a smoke alarm?
Right.
It's to prevent
But-
injury, but we don't regulate smoke alarms. That's part of, like, the building department.
Right.
So you can still, multiple departments can have
Can
a
opine.
share in, like, trying to minimize injury and
Yeah.
protect the safety and welfare of the townspeople.
I think for the
Right.
question of would
And
we be
I-
happy to read something, I'm not hearing anybody concerned about being
No.
happy to read something.
Yeah, and I think what's really important for you to consider is that everyone brings something different to the table. And the fact that you don't personally think it is public health doesn't
Right.
mean that it may not actually have an
But
influence.
my
I don't think that's
Right.
what we're saying. I don't disagree that there's a public health component. We're saying, is this something
The Board of
that's a
Health
Board of
regulates.
Health
There are many public
related
health
matter
issues
that
that
we
are
should
not
be
Board of Health.
producing a document as a Board of Health?
Because
and submitting?
the criticism of the
By who?
document.
No, but I would take
Yeah.
that separate. I would say producing the document, nobody objects to. What we want to, at least what I want to communicate clearly is,
Oh, okay.
I'm actually still skeptical that this falls in our purview. So I don't want it
I
to feel like.
understand. And I would, I
Let me just,
think,
let me just finish it. Like, I just think, I'm totally happy to read it, but I don't want you to write it under the impression that you guys asked me to put this together because you agreed that it was from the Board of Health. I'm totally happy to read it. I feel like I still don't understand it, and I need to read it to understand what you're communicating.
I understand
Right, I'd
that.
be
I understand
interested
it.
to see
That's
the
my point. So from
concept.
working on it so much, I can tell you that there's a very large amount of detail, and I think it would be valuable for you to actually understand what the debate is about.
So
Because-
I'm totally happy to not understand.
Because the debate, I mean, you know, one of the members of the committee, that it was a thoughtful document that is in compliance with state laws, blah, 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 blah. But what you want to know is, what does it have to do with the Board of Health, and why are we commenting? Is there something to
No,
comment on?
what I said is, I'm totally happy to read your document. I just think we need to make the document.
Oh, she is.
Everyone's like having
Yeah,
separate
okay.
conversations. Like-
No, no, but like, I
So
hear,
rude.
I already- I
I hear what
started
you're
it.
saying.
Okay.
I've acknowledged what you're saying.
Yeah.
I've acknowledged it 3 times, and so we need to see the document that you're describing.
So I'm not writing something that's my opinion, first of all.
I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying.
proposing that I give something to you guys as a board
Yep.
to hopefully perhaps provide some information about what the debate is and what the issues are. And then, if you're interested in my opinion, I'm happy to share it, but I'm just going to talk about the things that are probably what is being asked of us as a board.
Is it?
Who's asking it? But it
Yeah.
seems like you're proposing it. Who's asked for the Board of Health's opinion? Is this a product of the safety committee? I said, can the Board of Health weigh in on this? Or
You are welcome to call the chair of the Public Safety
No, no, I'm
Committee
literally
and ask
asking.
them why
You
I'm
said
here
you-
tonight.
No, but you said we've been asked to do it. You haven't told me who asked, and so I'm asking you who asked.
Okay, I was at a meeting where the selectmen were told that they needed to do more due process or
Some due
communicate
diligence and
more,
oversight. Yeah.
whatever, and that would include soliciting views from different people. And there are some people who believe that the Board of Health is actually involved in public health, that is involved with preventing highway pedestrian safety, highway safety, bicycle safety. That is, some people think that's public health. And so.
Nobody's disagreed that it's public health.
Right.
The question
Yeah.
is, does
Is
all
it
public
part of
health
the
fall within
board's-
Board of Health? But to the question, so Select Board hasn't asked for that yet.
No.
And so we're preparing
I'm
that
not-
in advance
so
of them asking for it.
I have no idea.
No, but
All
we're
I know
literally
is at
saying
that
that.
meeting, they said they were gonna solicit that. And I know that at the Public Safety Committee, Michael Goldstein asked me to come to you. And I don't know anything about whether we've been formally asked. I just
So,
was
no, no,
president
but
of
we
the
really
meeting.
answer it, we have not been formally asked.
I'm interested to hear what you want to present. So if you could do that.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Interesting.
I mean-
'cause I know all the background, I
Yeah.
know some of the
Right.
other discussions, the studies that have been done and that sort of
Yeah.
thing, trees on roads, close, not close.
I brought these because
So
I was
if
trying
you
to.
could weave it together
Yeah.
into where you think our expertise
That's what I was
and
going to try to
insights
do.
could fit in
There are
or
a
not.
few things that I actually think might be under public health, and I think that it's not the only thing. It's a very small thing, but it's a perspective that can be added to what's there. And the reason that it might be relevant is because the criticism of the document that was produced after extensive research with input from arborists and, you know, other towns and, you know, tree wardens and state law and blah, 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 the things that were, the main criticism that justified an individual and a couple of people going and having someone write through their own revisions, which was a very, you know, an individual's opinion was expressed in this, which is great, and that's fine.
But I'm concerned, like, what you're describing seems like a concern with how the policy was changed. And then
No,
the-
I'm just saying that it's actually a pretty good document. It's very thorough and comprehensive, and that's why I thought it might be helpful, and I don't have to do it at all, but I thought it might be helpful if I tried to pull some of the, narrow it down to just a couple of things, which are the issues that might actually be relevant for us talking. And I thought if I did that, because I happen to know a lot about what happened in in the first document, and then what people are talking about
what I
in the
would say
Public
is-
Safety Committee, I could give you guys some thoughts. You guys can all read both policies, and I recommend that you do, because the whole point is what is our opinion as a board on both policies. Maybe they're never going to ask us, and it's irrelevant.
So having your piece would be helpful,
But I think
because
also-
almost, it
Or
sounds
if-
almost like the open space and recreation plan. Our comments are strictly on their comments about water and septic and
Yeah.
protecting the
It's
water
only on-
resources.
like, it has
We
nothing
didn't
to
comment
do-
on anything else about that plan.
Of course,
that were
of
out of
course, right.
scope
I
on
mean, it
how you
has
support
nothing to do with
athletics, even though that's
pruning
healthy.
and replanting.
So
It
it
doesn't have
sounds
to do
like-
with that.
So the question would be, I just want to make sure I understand. So there's a tree report. Rebecca would prepare your vision of these are the parts that I see as being potentially in scope for Board of Health. We
Yeah.
as a board would then opine, do we collectively agree that
And then would
that's
it be?
in scope or not? And then if we all agreed, yes, that's in scope, we would then wait for the select board to approach us to solicit feedback.
Or provide
the
them as
safety
like a
committee.
letter, comments.
Right, but if,
But that,
I
so
don't
we're-
think
Select Board
anyone
and
is
Safety
asking
Committee.
us to vote on anything, and
Right, I
I
don't
don't
think
think
we
they
would.
will.
Right.
And I don't think it even matters, but if it's something that's worth, I happen to be very involved just because I was. And I was asked to present, they were very interested in this, Sherborn safety study I was supposed to present, they wanted me to present it at
yeah.
the state highway
So in terms,
department, which is
so in
what
terms of
they're
kind
arguing
of
about.
concrete pieces, did I describe correctly what you envision?
Yeah, I was just gonna try to pull out the couple things like what she just did that might
Perfect.
be relevant to us.
So sort of very analogous to that. So does anybody have any concerns with that?
No, I mean,
Sounds
it's
good.
but you're just writing a couple, comments and an add a girl, basically, letter to the open space.
Right.
If that's what you're contemplating, I don't see that as an issue at all.
Right.
I'm confused about if you are anticipating that the board is going to be producing a document that's going to be
Independent versus-
dictating the
Here's our
policy.
two bits
If
on
we're not
this.
asked to give a formal comment, then it doesn't matter.
Well, I
But
think
if
what-
it's,
So I think that what you're saying, Lisa, is totally happy to comment on existing policy, not interested in developing a new policy from a public health perspective as it relates to
Well, I just
trees.
don't think that's in
no, I don't
our
think that.
realm to do that.
No,
I mean,
it's
I
not.
certainly am not.
Right, no, it isn't. I mean,
Comfortable doing
from
that.
having been, of course, I was one of the people on the committee.
Mm-hmm.
I think it doesn't, there needs to be pretty good justification to get rid of all that work of all those people.
But
But
it-
that's a whole
right,
separate issue.
right,
So,
totally.
but I might be able to pull out from, in our research, some of the stuff that might be relevant to the board. And so I was just offering to do that, and I'm sorry I didn't have time to do it before the meeting, because
No,
I
no
could have
worries.
handed you a piece of paper.
What timeline feels realistic? Is this something
but
for
that
the,
would be good.
for the next agenda or?
And it's,
When is our next?
December
you know,
5th.
so it may be that the Board of Selectmen will just never ask us, but what
But then we could have
on the
considered it,
Public
no.
Safety Committee, there are some people who value our opinion.
So it sounds like,
And-
is December 5th a realistic turnaround time for you, or should it be the next meeting after that?
Whatever, it can't be December 5th because I won't be here. Is that our next
When-
meeting?
When's the next
Yes,
one?
December
Oh.
5th.
Oh, after that.
But if you could get it to us so that
December-
Yeah, no,
we're
I'll
not
try, I have
reading
to
it on
get
the same night that
Right,
we're
no,
talking
I have
about
to
it.
get it to you before then, because I'm going to
So-
miss that meeting. I'm going to be away.
No, and then we could hold discussion, but
When's the
it'd be
second
better
meeting?
not to have.
In December, is there only one?
19th?
December 19th.
So maybe if we can plan to circulate it prior to the December 5th meeting so we can review it and we'll discuss it collectively on the 19th, does that sound like a good turnaround?
Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah, that's actually good, because I'm gonna, I will do that. I'll try to do it soon, because I think it would just be helpful if I think it's just there's a very small amount that actually probably is arguably
Sounds good.
good for us to comment on.
Okay.
Sounds great. When's the payroll?
And
relevant
now,
with
I
the
just want to
frequent
announce that we're going to end the televised
I mean, I don't
portion
know.
of our meeting
What is-
because we're just going to be signing some warrants and payrolls. And
But I like cutting them down, too.
reviewing the minutes for approval from the prior meeting, and discussing agenda items, all of which will be posted. Thank you.